Namasabhayai. I welcome you all once, and then now I request Dr. Arjuna, SR Assistant Professor, Department of Philosophy, Manipal Academy of Higher Education, to welcome the gathering. Welcome you, Arjuna.
Thank you, Gowtham. Sarva Vagishvaro Vishnuhu Stri Rupo Mam Suvadayet Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Namaste. My name is Dr. Arjuna, working as an assistant professor at the Department of Philosophy, MAHE Manipal. It is my privilege to welcome the august gathering and the renowned guests who will be sharing their insights with all of us. We are delighted to welcome you all for this international seminar series on Yoga Karmasu Kausalam, Yoga, an art of equanimity and agency, with the financial support of the esteemed organization Indian Council of Philosophical Research, ICPR, New Delhi. This is the third event followed. This is the third such event followed by World Philosophy Day celebrated on the occasion of International Women's Day and ICPR periodic lectures. The Department of Philosophy is a constituent of the Faculty of Liberal Arts at MAHE Manipal. It incorporates teaching and research activities in the areas of humanities and social sciences through academic programs, projects, publications, and events. It is offering 2 postgraduate degrees and diploma programs in Indian philosophy and Sanskrit studies, apart from other courses in humanities at MAHE constituent units. The department is working with the University of Toronto, Canada, on a collaborative research project on Indian dialectics and argumentation, funded by Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute, SICI, New Delhi. It is also conducting research on MAHE Mahabharata, which is a computational analysis funded by Manipal University. This seminar, particularly the seminar which you all are present here, is the third and the final in this particular series. The first one on yoga philosophy in Bhagavata epic, it was by Dr. Dhananjay Rao from New Delhi, and the second one by Dr. Shyam Ranganathan from York University on Dharma Megha Samadhi, the moral rain cloud assessment. For today's event, we have 3 renowned scholars from different regions, but on the same subject. First, I would like to welcome Dr. Anuradha Choudry, who is working as an assistant professor at IIT Kharagpur. She is known for her contributions to promoting Sanskrit, yoga, and Indian knowledge systems. She is also one of the coordinators of the Center for Indian Knowledge System at IIT Kharagpur. We welcome you to this event on behalf of our department, madam. Another renowned scholar, Dr. Jayraman Mahadevan, is recently joined as the director at Indic Academy. He is a renowned yoga expert who has done extensive research on this subject for more than a decade. His research works on Hatha Yoga, Tantra Yukti, etc. are well received by academia and highly helpful for the students. We welcome you also, sir, for this session. Another scholar, Dr. Saroj Kanta, is working as program officer at ICPR New Delhi. He is also renowned for his administration and also academic contributions in the field of philosophy, particularly on yoga. He is one of the specialist scholars in Mahayana Buddhism as well. He has many publications to his credit. We welcome you also, sir, for this event. I must thank Indian Council of Philosophical Research, ICPR, for their financial support for this event as part of the Yoga Day celebrations. We are organizing many such events from almost a decade with the support of ICPR, in collaboration with ICPR. We organized 2 summer schools and many useful events with ICPR. So we are always thankful, and we would be happy to organize such events in future as well. We would, and the officials and the scholars from the ICPR, whoever is present in this event, we welcome you all as well. And we welcome all the guests who are present in this particular event to listen to these eminent scholars. We welcome you all as well, and we welcome the students who are pursuing their masters in Sanskrit studies and Indian philosophy to this program. We welcome each one of you to this wonderful event, and I hope you will get more insights on this particular topic by the eminent scholars who will be presenting their insights here. Gowtham, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Arjuna. Now it's time to, now I would like to introduce Dr. Anuradha Choudry to speak on Sanskrit Yoga, a means to fine-tune human consciousness. Dr. Anuradha Choudry is a faculty at the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, the Center of Excellence for Indian Knowledge Systems, and a member of Reiki Center of Excellence of the Science of Happiness at the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. A multilingual Sanskritist, she works in the areas of Indian or yoga psychology, philosophy, and culture, and is a resource person for national and international organizations. A recipient of the Excellent Yoga Teachers Award at IIT Kharagpur in 2019. She has co-edited and she has also co-edited and co-authored Perspectives on Indian Psychology and Happiness, Indic Perspectives, with Dr. Vinay Chandra BK, Director, Indic Academy. Over to you, ma'am. We're happy to have you here.
Namaste and Bahu Dhanyavadaha and Namasabhaye, and to all my fellow panelists who will be speaking today, panelists, speakers, experts who will be also presenting their thoughts, Dr. Jayraman and other sir. So I would like to start by doing a small invocation and then I'll broach my topic. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Om Shanno Mitra Shamvarunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Brihaspatihi Shanno Vishnurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Vritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Kanmamavatu Tad Vaktaram Avatu Mam Avatu Vaktaram Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So namaste to everybody once again, and I'd like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Gowtham, Dr. Arjun, Dr. Anand, Dr. Srinivas for having invited me to share a few thoughts in this very, among some very illustrious scholars, and just to share some ideas on what the Sanskrit language is. So the topic of the day that I have chosen is Sanskrit Yoga, a means to fine-tune human consciousness. Now, what does that really mean? Is something that I will try and elaborate in the course of today's presentation. Just one second. Yes. So I would like to also thank, before I continue, I'd also like to thank ICPR and in particular Dr. Saroj Kanta also for being present and for facilitating such fantastic programs, because I think there is a greater need gradually as the nation moves towards the NEP 2020. There is a greater need for such programs to be conducted, and audience come to know more about what have been the fabulous thought, concepts, and different literature that have been evolved across the spectrum of Sanskrit literature and also Indian thought traditions. So, with these few words, I'll just start my presentation. So when we think of Sanskrit as a yoga, we think of first and foremost the language Sanskrit itself. And here I've tried to combine two things that you would have normally heard as presented separately, or you would have heard Sanskrit as being a subject, Sanskrit a language that is important for yoga, because a lot of the texts of the yoga world are in the Sanskrit language. And therefore, we know that Sanskrit is an important language for yoga. But here I'm considering Sanskrit as a yoga in itself. And I'd like to elaborate on that as we proceed. So, there are some fundamental questions that are posed when we think of language. First and foremost, what is language? And is language a human monopoly? So, I'm just wondering from Dr. Gowtham and Dr. Arjun if we have a scope for an interactive session with the participants, or do they have access to the chat or they don't?
I have access to the chat, and it can be an interactive session as well.
All right, great. So I'd love to hear from you when we talk of language. What is it that comes to your mind? What comes to your mind when we talk of language? Anybody among the participants? Would you like to?
Students can use the chat box to drop your thoughts. Even participants can use the chat section.
Okay, great. So it's a tool for communication for sure. Yes, Ashokji, can we allow him to unmute? It's a means of communication, identity, very much so.
Yeah, communication only.
Yes, communication, identity, no doubt. What else? So we see, and then therefore, is it a human? It's a transfer of knowledge. So it is a tool for the transmission of knowledge traditions. So therefore, if we cease to have access to a certain language, we also don't have access anymore to that entire tradition of knowledge that would have evolved in that particular language. So there is like a coupure or a cut from an entire knowledge tradition when a language dies, basically. Okay. And is it a human monopoly? Anybody? Is language a human monopoly? If not, what is so unique about human language? What does human language allow that maybe the language of the birds or the language of the animals, the language of the plants doesn't allow them to do, as far as we are aware of? Anybody on that? What is so unique about human language? Okay. So, anybody would like to give that a shot? All right. Emotional sounds and meanings, if each sound, all right. It's not a monopoly. But what is so unique about human language that animals cannot engage? Not, let's say it comes from a characteristic of the human being. Communicate after death. Okay, that's going in the next step. But even in life, what is it that the human being can use language for that the animals don't? What faculty does the human being have that then allows language to become a tool that an animal or a plant doesn't have? It's not part of their agenda. Sixth sense, okay, communicate, okay. What other feature can a human being do? What what is a human being capable of doing, that an expansion of consciousness to record information for posterity. Very interesting. Posterity thing is a little tricky because there is transmission of knowledge even in the animal kingdom, even in the plant kingdom. We see that there is learning that happens, but possibly not in the way, in a systematic manner as we have in literature. All right. Creative expression, reach in the masses. All right, all right. There's one very classic feature that the human being has, which animals don't have, is this ability to look at themselves. It's the ability to look inward, to look at themselves and ask certain basic questions about themselves. This possibility of self-awareness and self-rectification is a very unique feature that has been attributed to the human species as of now, and within the range of evolution that we are aware of till date. So this ability of ours to look at ourselves is one of the main investigations of the yoga world. The entire yoga tradition has evolved on this need for the individual to introspect, ask certain basic questions of existence. Who am I? What is the purpose of my life? Where am I headed? What is my relationship with the world around me? And the answer, the quest to that question, led them to arrive at certain answers, which they then expressed in the form of different texts, different scriptures like the Vedas, the Upanishads. But we also recognize at the same time that this expression of self discovery was not necessarily limited to the Sanskrit language alone. We find this understanding of the self expressed in all languages across cultures. So it's important to also retain what is unique and what is different about languages. So the Sanskrit language somehow has a very special role even within the gamut of languages that exist, that have been transmitters of self-knowledge in different ways. And we'll try and understand some of that as we go ahead. So the very etymology of the term language comes from the vulgar Latin linguaticum. And that we begin to understand something interesting that happens there, because we know that if you have a tongue, we can then articulate language. So without the tongue, it's not so easy to articulate language. And therefore, we see that the word tongue or language has become synonymous with expression of our thoughts through the mode of sounds and articulations. We see that in the Sanskrit language, the term, the etymology of Sanskrit is bhasha, which literally comes from bhash, to speak. And by a certain extrapolation, I am not so sure how valid that is, but by a certain extrapolation, we can go down to the root bha, which means to shine. So the thoughts become our shining, the shining representations, or our language becomes the shining representations of our thought, of our personality. And therefore, within the yoga tradition, also, there was a lot of care and concern about the language that one uses, because the language that one uses is very reflective of the space that from which that language is emanating. So when I'm talking of space, I'm also referring to those the inner space of the human being, which is qualified by their thoughts, by their emotions, by their physical form itself. So all of this whole composition results in the expression of language and the use of language in particular ways. This was a very interesting study that is being done by Professor Lera Boroditsky. She's an associate professor of cognitive sciences at UCSD. So what she says is that language is so fundamental to our experience, so deeply a part of our being human, that it's hard to imagine life without it. But an important question she asks is that, are languages merely tools for expressing our thoughts, or do they actually shape our thoughts? Because if they do shape our thoughts, then in what way are different languages shaping our thinking? To what extent are different languages shaping our worldview? And therefore, when we are engaging with language, to understand that it is not merely a phenomenon of expression and for communication, but we are also engaging in processes of formatting our very psychological structures. So this is entering into the psycholinguistics of language itself. And then she goes on to make this very interesting remark or observation, in fact, from her research, where she says, in our lab, we've taught English speakers different ways of talking about time. In one such study, English speakers were taught to use size metaphors, as in Greek, to describe duration. For example, a movie is larger than a sneeze. So things even like time or color or direction that we take for granted in the languages that we speak might be absent in certain languages because they conceive of realities differently itself. So she says, or vertical metaphors, as in Mandarin, to describe event order. Once the English speakers had learned to talk about time in these new ways, their cognitive performance began to resemble that of Greek or Mandarin speakers. This suggests that patterns in language can indeed play a causal role in constructing how we think. So this was, I think, quite revelatory. She also has a very interesting. She did an interesting experiment where she asked Germans and Spanish people to talk about a bridge. So the gender of the bridge in German, I think, was a feminine gender, whereas in Spanish it's a masculine gender, or it could be the other way around. I'm forgetting at the moment. So what she found is that when you are talking to, when you refer to the bridge as a masculine and you use adjectives around it, they will use strong, they'll use all the words that correspond to masculinity in their heads. And when they talk about feminine, if the word is a feminine word, then they will associate it with feminine terms. And we'll see how the Sanskrit language is extremely disruptive in many of this. It's a language that breaks a lot of our conventional ways of looking at things as well. So moving on, what is the origin of the Sanskrit language? What is the origin of language at all? So we have Dr. V.S. Ramachandran, a very famous neuroscientist who conceived of or who discovered the mirror neuron in the brain, where he says that if I touch somebody, there are two neurons that fire in my brain. If somebody who's watching me touch somebody, the identical neurons will fire in their brain as if they are touching the other person. So there's a lot of overlap with the Vedantic ideas of, what is subjective experience, what is objective experience, and to what extent are we all molding each other's lives, etc., just by the very actions that we are doing and perceiving. So what he says about language, he says that the phenomenon of language in the brain is extremely complex. It is attributed to a place called the Broca's area, but that's only one part that seems to be responsible for the final output of language. But the construction of language in the brain is a very, very elaborate and complex affair, which they don't really have much understanding. They don't have full understanding as yet. And they're also saying that there's very little known about the origins of language. How did languages emanate? So giving it a little bit of thought, and also from our, which one is that example? It's just escaping. Okay, so one of the Mahabhashyam, in fact. So there is a reference to the story of Brahma and Indra. So the story goes that Brahma is, he's the lord of the word, the creative power. And he's uttering this word, and Indra is the first student. So Indra is listening to it, and he says that, there is a problem with this mode of learning, because whatever Brahma sounds is reality. Whatever Brahma sounds becomes reality. So sound is generative of real experiences in the present. And then he says that Indra says that at this rate, I would be sitting here forever. So Indra says, I will rearrange what I'm hearing. So Indra is the first grammarian because he decided to cut up language. He said, I will now put a past tense and a present tense and a future tense, which implies that the present is no longer the only reality that we can refer to. And a Russian friend of mine says that this was almost like the first lie, because now you could talk of something that was not. So grammar allowed the cutting up of reality and replacing of reality in different ways. The Sanskrit language, however, the origin is very special because it was received by the rishis in the Vedas at the heights of their meditation. So the Vedic rishis had silenced their being through their quests for understanding the purpose of existence. And as they silenced the mental noise of their being, they became receivers of answers from the universe. So the answers from the universe reverberated through their channel of being and express themselves through the Sanskrit language in the form of the Vedic hymns. The Vedic mantras were then pronounced by these rishis. But there we know of the source of the Sanskrit language as somewhere emanating from those four levels of speech, which are para. So there is a beyond, then there is a pashyanti, where the individual connects with that sound. Then that gets translated through the medium of the individual, the madhyama, and it's expressed through the speech as vaikhari. So these four levels of speech, if there is no distortion of the human noise, then what is seen is what it's uttered. And that's the very nature of the mantra. The mantra is nothing but, in my understanding, it's something like systematized sound technology, where sounds were perceived to be carriers of direct experience, because the rishis had made themselves like very undisturbed receivers to then resonate with the answers that they were receiving and vocalize them through the mechanism of their speech instrument. And that's also one reason. So, the source of the Vedic language is not formulated by the human mind or circumstantially evolved through social interactions. The origins of the Sanskrit language in the Vedas happened as a genuine seeking and a listening to answers from the cosmos. Okay. Now, what are the implications of that? So, this is a more elaborate thing. I'll not get into it, but the question is, what then is Sanskrit? So, we see that Sanskrit, unlike many languages that are often associated with regions or communities, Sanskrit has not undergone any different change in its name itself, because it is samyak kritam. It is so well done. It is so perfect at every level of its structure that they could not but call it Sanskritam. It's also known as the Deva Bhasha, or that language of light in a sense, because Deva comes from the root div, which means to be illumined. So the divine beings are illumined beings. They are not necessarily just those godheads that we represent in particular manners. They are, of course, personalized and anthropocized, so that we can have a relationship with them. But that's because there is consciousness behind them, so we can relate to them. But the source of that is that it is an illumination, it is a revelation. And that's why the Sanskrit language has this feature of light in it. It is an illuminating language at many parts, and the basis also for considering Sanskrit as a yoga in itself. It's one of the bases. So it's also regarded as the most wonderful language. So the history of Sanskrit, as we see in the Vedas, and then it was later codified much more and mentalized in its expression. So the mantric Sanskrit has much more of an intuitive quality, which later, as the mind faculty evolved in the human species, became more analytical in its presentation. I hope you're understanding this difference between the two ways in which we could know things. One could know things through reasoning, the analytical way of accessing knowledge, or one can know things through seeing, through intuiting. The source of the Sanskrit language seems to be seeded in intuition rather than in logical thought. Okay. And therefore, what is the science of the Sanskrit language? What is so special? What really is the characteristic of language? What is language bhasha? So, very typically, it's formed of sounds, words, sentences, content. What are the sounds of the Sanskrit language? We have the alphabet or the Varna Mala. And the Varna Mala, again, it's not a coincidence that it's called Varna Mala. It's not just the alpha, beta, gamma, and therefore the alphabet. So it is not just k, kha, g like that. It's known as the Varna Mala because it was recognized that every letter corresponds to a particular vibration. That vibration corresponds to a sound, it corresponds to an image, taking us back to the understanding that sounds, images, worldviews are all interrelated. So the entire thing of mantra, yantra, tantra, there are very intimate connections between these depending on the media that is receiving them. So we had the alphabet, and then you have the Varnamala, which is there. I'll quickly go through this part of it. So we see that the alphabet itself is arranged in a very systematic manner in the human vocal system. And therefore, with every sound that one produces, the way in which it follows the order, when we say the Varnamala, it follows the order in which sound comes out of the human vocal system. And there is a very conscious choice of breath with every single utterance that there is. So if pranayama is a yogic technique to watch breath and to manage breath and to make breath flow in particular ways in order to regulate one's system, to regulate one's thought, to regulate one's emotions, the Sanskrit language has spontaneously organized its aksharas, the indestructible sounds, in a manner so that the very pronunciation of it is very systematic. And one cannot utter a single Sanskrit letter without placing your full awareness on the place of pronunciation, the length of the vowel, the amount of breath you have to put into it. And that's only with the sounds. Okay. Beyond that, of course, the Sanskrit letters, when we conceive of the mantra Purusha, the Sanskrit letters are associated with the different chakras of the body. And therefore, reciting Sanskrit mantras are not just it's not just a practice of invocation of godheads, etc., but very, very physiologically, we are also engaging in a process of energy circuiting throughout a system. So you see, there is a certain deeper understanding of the relationship between physiology, energy, breath, and if one knows the Sarvatobhadra's chart of Vedic astrology, we also see that there is a connection with the Vedic, with the planets, where the letters are assigned different planets, or the different planets are assigned different letters. So we see that there are alignments that are happening at various levels. So the perfection of the systematic usage of the human vocal system, which sort of allows an entire stimulation of the brain. So I say it's like a brain massage to just recite the Sanskrit alphabet. And the other day, somebody was telling me that in Mahayana Buddhist practice, they recite the Sanskrit alphabet as a means to perpetuate good health. Okay, so there is just the breath factor of it, the chakric movement of it, the cosmic alignment with planets that are happening there, many things. And as you see the relationship with the chakras, it really starts with the vowels. So that's our Vishuddha. Our personality is manifested through these vowels. And then it goes down the heart and all the way down to the Muladhara. And you have the hum and ksham, which are back in the Ajna. So there is a kind of an awakening that takes place by the mere recitation of these alphabets. Then there is a certain mathematical, what do you say, a mathematical optimality or optimization of the order in which the Shiva Sutras or the Maheshwara Sutras have been placed. So that mathematically, that's the optimum reorganization of the letters in order to create our the entire Ashtadhyayi of Panini. In terms of words, I mean, there are many things I had that these terms are descriptive rather than uh, just being a term that you have to learn and understand. They describe it, as you can see with different words here. But I wanted to take up the three words we had: yoga, karmasu, kauśalam, and I'll just take up maybe the first two. So yoga itself meaning unite. So to unite what? So yujir yogi and yujir samadhau. So there's a dissolution. So questions that every single word that is of some weightage, which is not necessarily talking of the daily things, but words themselves evoke an entire psychology there. So what are we aligning? Who are we? What are we aligning? With what are we aligning? How can we align? So many questions are embedded in single terminologies. Similarly, the term karma, which means action normally, but it also means the fruit of action. So if one knows the karma cycle, you know that the moment one acts, it leaves an impression, which is the samskara, which then results in tendencies, the vasanas, which leads to the new karma or the fruit or the new action, but it is also the fruit of the first action if one does not do something specific or one does not intervene consciously. So action and fruit are are intricately connected if one is not a very conscious person. The more conscious one becomes, the more one recognizes that every action is an independent choice that one can do, and the importance of the present action. So you can have multiple names for the sun, with one word that has many meanings like khaga, shanti, or om. And then these words, like the om itself, contains all the possible sounds of the human vocal system. So when one says the O, it's like the most neutral stimulation of the whole being in terms of sound structures. And therefore, the Om is associated with all knowledge, creation of everything, etc. And then we have Sanskrit non-translatable. It's very important idea to know that when we go from one language to another, there are certain ideas that correspond to worldviews. So unless there is a parallel or a similar worldview, it would be very hard to find translations, and therefore any translation is necessarily a reduction in some form or the other. Practical psychology through sukha, which means excellent spaces, and asking, where are these excellent spaces? What do we mean by vairagya, which means not allowing oneself to be colored, because ranj means to be colored. So, what does it mean to engage in life and not be colored by that experience? And again, psychologically, and even through the yoga texts, we are made aware often of the need to to stop these vrittis. So if something has happened, can I just identify it as an aklishta vritti? Just recognize that for itself and not get caught up in the stories it has, etc. Because the more the stories, the more distorted one's perception of reality is. Okay, so Vairagya, talking of that. And then how do we build sentences in Sanskrit? So just a very quick thing here where you have the basic building blocks of any language, which is a subject and a verb. And then you ask, so when the left brain is using language in linearity, the right brain is visualizing it in images. So it has multiple inputs for the word that you're creating. So when you ask these different questions, where, whom, what, how, why, then we are also creating details of the picture. So the Sanskrit language uh, is unique in its, I would say unique, has a special feature. To say unique, I would have to know all the other languages, and which I don't. But from the languages I know, the Sanskrit language, like many of our mother tongues, but even more specific than that, seems to have incorporated the preposition into the word itself. So if I say the boy goes to school from home, Sanskrit will say schoolam, like vidyalayam, uh, homat, from home, which is grihat. And by doing this, it achieves a few things. So there is a drastic reduction in words. So 18 words in the English sentence, 9 words in the Sanskrit sentence. And the greatest feature that it offers is the flexibility of the word order, because every word is self-sufficient in the format, that in the relationship with the other words in the sentence. Okay, so in order just to use the Sanskrit language, the mind has to engage in multiple layers of cognitive decision making processes. There are physiological decisions to be made, there are cognitive decisions to be made. And then there is, like, when I'm saying cognitive, you have to know which vibhakti. There are 7 of them plus the vocative, which number, singular, dual, or plural, which person, which gender, which ending. There are so many factors that one has to compute in order to utter a single correct sound or a correct word in the Sanskrit language. And it is this demand on our consciousness which forces the being to become more Sanskritized. We are forced to wake up, we are forced to be mindful with every single utterance of the Sanskrit language, and that is what I'm referring to as the Sanskrit yoga. And it is found, and there is one Anthony McBuyer from Australia who has a very good TED talk, where he says that by uh, by just chanting Sanskrit, just by repeating loads and loads and loads of Sanskrit verses, he says he achieved a blank mind. So this language seems to have a feature that spontaneously can, if one is not caught up by, let's say, the content and the thought and all, just the sounds of it can facilitate the mind from blanking out, which is a desirable end in the yogic tradition. And so, therefore, the psycholinguistics, so there is embedded interrelationality of words, clarity of relationships or interrelationships of thought components, helps unambiguous categorization of the worlds around and within, and presents a philosophical logic of the linguistic grid that facilitates the mental computing needed to form a sentence. I think I'll have to close shortly, no? Gautam, brother?
Uh, yes, if you can take 5 more minutes.
I'll just wrap it up. Yeah. And this is just David Frawley who says that, it's one of the most continuously used ancient languages. There's a lot of literature in it. I'll just tell some of the fantastic creations. So here you have a verse, you make a mirror image of that, and you get a magic square. Similarly, there is this design of the Damaru. The Avadhana traditions do some fabulous mind work of creativity and mathematics using the Sanskrit language. This is another very important, very interesting mathematical problem that is resolved by making one verse and putting it in the square, then reorganizing the letters of the first verse and creating the second verse, which gives us the answer to how a horse can move in every single square of the Sanskrit of the chessboard. And there's a lot of course, the Indic contributions that have been there. A very important discovery for me personally was when I realized that the Sanskrit language does not have the verb to have, because the entire focus was on being. One could have things, but not as an absolute in themselves. That having was important so long it reinforced who we became as a result of that having. So I cannot say I have a book in Sanskrit. I have to say the book is with me. So again, it's a whole worldview, multi-layered world, the recognition of the Vedic rishis that what you see is only one superficial level of reality. There are many layers. And also the underlying recognition that there is one sound in the whole tantric shastra of the sound that diversified itself and became the many. Okay, so from a very sound perspective, linguistic perspective, one can go back to the roots or the origins of existence itself. And therefore, to conclude, almost physiologically, it stimulates all the parts of the being. Emotionally, pranayama, it's breath regulation, it regulates emotions. Mentally, it brings disciplined thinking. Spiritually, it has the potential to reconnect us to our para levels through cultivation of rita chit. Because in Sanskrit, there is very little option of I want to say it like that. One has to say it the way it is. You have to do it right. There's little scope for subjective translations. And Will Durant says this. He says that India was the mother of our race, motherland of our race, and Sanskrit the mother of Europe's languages. She was the mother of our philosophy, mother through the Arabs of much of our mathematics, mother through the Buddha of the ideals embodied in Christianity, mother through the village community of self-government and democracy. Mother India is in many ways the mother of us all. And here we have two more quotations by Friedrich Schlegel, who says that it is one of the most perfect languages that has been created, including Greek and Latin, etc. And Sri Aurobindo says, he says that the language in itself has been universally recognized by those competent to form a judgment as one of the most magnificent, the most perfect, the most wonderfully sufficient literary instruments developed by the human mind, at once majestic and sweet and flexible, strong and clearly formed, and full and vibrant and clear and subtle. And to close the verse which says, let everybody be happy, sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet, om shanti shanti shanti, which is also a responsibility, but because to wish happiness, one has to practice happiness. To wish disease-free existence, one has to practice disease-free existence. To want everybody to see the good, every individual must practice the good. And for no one to have sorrow as a responsibility, one should cease to be a cause of sorrow for anybody around us. So Om Shanti on 3 times on that. And the recognition again that there are these three worlds, so many worlds, and just by sounds, by the use of this language of Sanskrit, one can refine, one can create the Sanskritization of the entire human consciousness. And that's why the mother and Sri Aurobindo from Pondicherry Sri Aurobindo Ashram, they said that um, in India, just as every child in France knows French, every child in India must know Sanskrit, because Sanskrit is the language of India's soul. And if one wants to know what India is all about, what Bharatam is all about, then one needs to connect to the spirit of this language, which is the same as the spirit of yogic investigation of Indian civilization. So with these few words, Bahu Dhanyavadaha, thank you very much. And Kshamyatam if I have gone over time. Bahu Dhanyavadaha.
Dhanyavadaha, Mahodaya. And this is like wonderful to hear from you that like what is Sanskrit, to how it helps mentally, physically, and like it's about like all about like what can we do and like what should we do and all. So it's good. And now it's time for discussion. So if anyone has questions or anything to clarify, you may raise your hand. So I will unmute you. You can use the raise hand option. If the questions so if the questions are not now, so then we can also take the questions at the end. Hope you're fine with that, Anuradha.
Time wise, yes, I think it's better that the others also.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Bahu Dhanyavada to all of you once more. Bahu Dhanyavada.
Thank you once again. And the next talk is on Chaturvyuhas, the Heart of Yoga Sutras by Dr. Jayraman Mahadevan. Dr. Jayraman Mahadevan, a researcher in Yoga Sutra, serving as Director, Textual Research Division in Yoga at Indic Academy. He holds a PhD in Sanskrit from the University of Madras, and both in his undergraduate and postgraduate degrees, he stood university first, securing a gold medal and special prize. He underwent traditional Gurukula education in Vedas and Shastras from 1998 to 2005 in Veda Vijnana Gurukulam, Bengaluru, under Pracharya Kotamani Ramachandra Bhatt. He served the research department of Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram, Chennai, for 10 years, from 2010 to 21. Thus far, he has published 14 books and 14 peer-reviewed journal articles on yoga and Sanskrit literature. He is also involved in developing immersive learning methods of yoga texts. Yogasya Bhasha, a 4-part self-learning material on Sanskrit and yoga. Yoga Visharadi, a searchable web repository on classical texts of yoga, are a few of his noteworthy contributions in recent times. His workshops on Tantra Yukti, ancient Indian thesis or text construction methodology, are well received. His expertise is recognized and utilized by various government institutions and academics and other organizations by nominating him to their boards. We're happy to have you here, Mahodaya, and over to you.
Namaste, Gowtham ji. Thanks for that introduction, and my respects and thanks to Manipal University, the Philosophy Department, the ICPR for inviting me for this talk, and my namaste to previous speaker, Dr. Anuradha Choudry ji, and all the previous speakers in this series of lecture on yoga. Now it's interesting that probably I understand that mine is the penultimate talk before the conclusion of this talk series. So it will be interesting to know how to understand yoga in a nutshell. What is the essence of yoga? What is the heart of yoga? So because many of you being part of so many lectures, the previous exhaustive introduction, amazing introduction of how Samskrita itself is a yoga, and the other previous talks, as was mentioned, about the Dharma Megha Samadhi and various yoga in Bhagavata. So various dimensions of yoga have already been touched upon. So there seems to be so many ideas connected to yoga, but what do we see, or what is the core? What if I know, then I have not missed the core of yoga? So that question might be there in your minds. So my talk focuses on the core or the heart of yoga. If we are aware of this, if we remember this, then we remember the essentials of yoga. So hence this topic, the Chaturvyuha, the concept of Chaturvyuha that is presented in the Yoga Sutra, which presents the heart of yoga. Yoga Sutras especially, and Yoga Sutras are the central foundational treatises in is one of the is the foundational treatise in Yoga Shastra. So now generally when we see about the perception about yoga, general perception is asana and pranayama, which helps fitness and improve immunity. That's at one level of understanding. Another level, much more people who are into yoga, much more deeper into yoga, they understand yoga as it is increasingly now being evidenced that yoga is also a system of therapy, system of healing, which will help overcome certain and manage most of ailments to some extent. Subjective well-being, it leads to subjective well-being with the tools of Ashtanga yoga and Hatha yoga. This is another level of understanding of yoga. And then there is a third and much more comprehensive and deeper level of understanding of yoga, where we can understand yoga as a comprehensive universal system of understanding human life, its direction and destination. So that is another higher and deeper level and layer of yoga, which comes about, and I state it based on the confidence that I derive by studying at the concept of Chaturvyuha. So if we are aware of this Chaturvyuha, then it is as if that we can get to the gradually. I don't falsify the previous steps of understanding of yoga, but the core of yoga, the central, the highest, the pinnacle of yoga can be understood if we are aware of this Chaturvyuhas, the fourfold arrangement of tools of yoga that is presented in Patanjali Yoga Sutras. And also there is a beautiful verse in Samskrita, Ananta Shastram Bahuveditavyam Alpascha Kalaha Bahavascha Vignaha Yat Sarabhutam Tadupasitavyam Hamso Yatha Kshiram Iva Ambu Madhya. This is a very popular verse, Subhashita in Samskrita. Endless are the Shastras. Even if you take Yoga Shastra, just one Shastra, you see that there are endless treatises. There is Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga, Amanaska Yoga, Laya Yoga, and so many yogas. And each of those, for example, Patanjali Yoga Sutras itself contains so many commentaries, sub-commentaries, teekas, etc. And then magnum opuses in yoga like Yoga Vasishta, which contain 32,000 verses. And that Yoga Vasishta is shortened or abridged into Yoga Vasishta Sara of 6,000 verses. That is further reduced to 200 verses. So in this way, we have yoga texts in so many shapes and sizes, and so much of diverse ideas about yoga exists. So I'm just giving one Shastra. In this way, there are so many Shastras: Shiksha, Vyakaranam, Kalpam, Niruktam, Jyotisham, Chandaha, Vyakaranam, all those texts are there. So Ananta Shastram, Bahuveditavyam, everything has to be known. Everything has its own importance, utility, the quality it adds to the life. It's very important. But Alpascha Kalaha, the time, human life is limited. So we all come with a karma vipaka, which gives us a limited ayuh. So alpascha kalaha and bhavascha vignaha. There are so many obstacles in that path. So, but there is a deep urge that this is our treasure, this is our wisdom, this is our heritage that we need to imbibe, and we need to imbibe it in the true spirit. So what do? Yat sarabhutam tad upasitavyam. What is the core? What is the heart? What is essential? What is the important dimension? We have to look for it. So hamso yatha kshiram iva ambu madhyat. There is a statement we see that there is a capability, the so-called there is a capability of the hamsa, the swan, to separate water and milk and takes only the milk in that way. So among the huge amount of wisdom that is available, we have to go to the crux. What is the core? What is the cream? What is the central aspect of it? So hence Chaturvyuha. So why Chaturvyuha? I am substantiating that. And of course, we also see that in Hatha Yoga Pradipika, in the beginning itself, Swatmarama, he says, the author, he says that Bhrantya Bahumata Dhvante. So that's how he commences his treatise itself. So there is Bhranti, because there is Bahumata Dhvanta, means there is ignorance. So people blinded with ignorance means darkness, sorry. So when we are in darkness, we do not know which direction to take, so we are confused. So in that sense, in that way, there are multiple views, multiple levels of views. Which one is appropriate to me? Which path should I take? So lack of views are also a problem. Multiplicity of views also create confusion and confounding. So Bhranti is created by Bahumata, multiple opinions. So here also we have to see what is essential, what is core. So if we get to the core, then we can understand where all these strands of thinking fit in. So hence also we have to always move to the center. We have to move to the core. Hence Chaturvyuha. And also we see in the current era, yoga is universal. Of course, it is globally practiced, but there is also means yoga is being popularized. Sometimes it is glamorized also. So in various ways. So we have to come to what is the core, what is essential, what are the fanciful things which are added to yoga, and what is the core. So in that sense, all this necessitates that we move to the core, and the knowledge of Chaturvyuha will keep us closer to the core. The closer we are to the core, the possibility is more that we reach the goal. So what are the Chaturvyuhas, about which I have given so much of an introduction, about much of an ado I have created. So the Chaturvyuhas are Heyam, Heya Hetu, Hana and Hanopaya. So these are the four Vyuhas. Vyuha in Sanskrita means arrangement. So a fourfold arrangement or approach or a system. So in Yoga Sutra especially, we see a fourfold arrangement of the thought. The entire Yoga Sutra can be condensed into this. So Heya, what is to be overcome? Suffering. Heya Hetu, what is the cause of suffering? And then Hana, what is the state of freedom from suffering? So if suffering is there, cause of suffering is analyzed, then it is not enough by analyzing these two. We have to attain the state where we are free from the suffering. And then Hanopaya, this is also very important. So we are aware of the methods, strategies to overcome or reach the desired goal of freedom from suffering. So these are the four Vyuhas, and I will give you a little more interesting ideas about this Chaturvyuha before going into explaining or giving a brief introduction. So I can just touch upon this, because Chaturvyuha itself needs a lot of explanation, but since half an hour is the time that is given to me, all that I can do is I can give an introduction to Chaturvyuha. And one more aspect of it is this Chaturvyuha approach. So Heya Hetu, Hana, Upaya, only four aspects. This methodology of condensing the Shastra has been used across disciplines of ancient India. So it is much a desired methodology to understand the core of any system of knowledge. For example, we see in the Charaka Samhita, Bhishak, Dravyani, Upasthata, Rogi, Pada Chatushtayam, Gunavat karanam jneyam vikara vyupashantaye. So vikara vyupashantaye, to overcome the vikara, which is illness. So four things are needed: bishak, the physician; dravyani, the material that he has, the healing material that he has, the medicine, the preparations, etc. Upasthata, the one who administers it. So who is there, the attendant who administers this medicine from time to time, that is important. And of course rogi, the one who is afflicted by the illness. So etat pada chatushtayam, these are the four divisions. Gunavat karanam jneyam, so these are the four valuable causes which are to be understood properly. Bishak, there should be a good doctor, and the material should also be good, and the upasthata should also know how to and when to administer various treatment methods. And a rogi, the one who is afflicted by illness, should also cooperate in the process. If all these four come together, so this is the chaturvyu, then vikara vyupashanti, the vikaras or the vitiations and the illnesses, they subside when all these four padas, they work together. Pada chatushtayam. So in Ayurveda it is called as pada chatushtayam. So the same methodology of approaching the entire system. See, by this four we can bring or condense the entire Ayurveda Shastra. So in that sense, we see the fourfold approach is much liked in the Ayurveda Shastra also. Interestingly, we find the same Chatushpada or the Pada Chatushtaya Vyavastha in the Buddha Dharma also. In the Dharma Chakra Pravartana Sutra, which is one of the oldest literature, or which is considered to be the direct teachings of Buddha himself. So after the life of Buddha, so many literature got compiled into various pitakas. This Dharma Chakra Pravartana Sutra is said to have the direct teachings of Buddha himself, where Buddha also uses this fourfold approach. Idam dukham, ayam dukkha samudayah, ayam dukkha nirodhaha, iyam dukkha nirodha gamini pratipaditi. So this is suffering, this is the cause of suffering, and this is how the suffering is overcome, dukkha nirodhaha and dukkha nirodha gamini pratipat. So this is how the suffering is overcome. These are the methods to overcome the suffering. So we see in Buddhism, the Bauddha Dharma, the same Chatushpada Vyavastha is seen, respected, methodology is applied. And in the Ayurveda Shastra also, we see the same Chatushpada Vyavastha applied. Then people again, they start a discussion when this comes. So where did this Chaturvyuha Vyavastha come from? There is a kind of there is a kind of an approach in the Western Indologists, especially connected to yoga, that everything is attributed to Bauddha Dharma, etc. Especially from the dharmic perspective, we are not we are open to understanding, accepting frameworks and models in the process of constant assimilation. It is not appropriation, it is assimilation. So people would want to use the word appropriation. So this idea was appropriated from this discipline, this idea was appropriated. No, this is not appropriation. Appropriation is not an appropriate word at all in the context of knowledge. So in knowledge, everyone interacts with the other. So in the process of interaction, each gain from the other. Maybe this idea that Buddha might have got also from, he wandered across the country, so various parts. So while interacting with the people, in the process of interacting with so many Vaidyas, so many physicians, common people, he might have grasped it from the common life, or even from the basic healing methods. So since it is mentioned in the Buddha literature, we cannot attribute it, or start the starting point of this need not be essentially ascribed to Buddhism alone. Whereas there is no problem in attributing to Buddhism also, because it also is under the same dharmic framework only. So from our point of view, Buddhism is another way of looking at means with a mata bheda, with they have different opinions, but they also fall within the same dharmic way of thinking, where there has been a lot of interactions. So in that sense, let's not go deeper into this idea of to whom this Chaturvyuha belonged to. It all belongs to the entire dharmic civilization. So in that sense, the point is coming back to the central point that this Chaturvyuha Vyavastha, the fourfold approach of Heyam, Heya Hetu, Hanam, Upayam, belonged to or kind of respected by Ayurveda, respected by Bauddha Dharma and many other systems. And when we consult the Yoga Sutra Vyakhyana by Vyasa, the primary commentary, he essentially attributes this Chaturvyuha Vyavastha to Chikitsa Shastra. So, Yatha Chikitsa Shastram Chaturvyuham. So, to I think to the Sutra 2.15, where Parinama Tapa Samskara Dukkhaihi Gunavritti Virodhacha Dukkhameva Sarvam Vivekinaha. 2.16 is Heyam Dukkham Anagatam. To that sutra, as a Pitika, we find this Bhashya where Vyasacharya, who is as close to Patanjali himself. So we see that he attributes this fourfold Vyavastha, fourfold organization of the entire Yoga Sutra wisdom, he attributes it to Chikitsa Shastram. Yatha Chikitsa Shastram Chaturvyuham, the system of healing. Rogaha Rogahetuhu Arogyam Bhaishajyamiti. Evam idamapi shastram chaturvyuham eva. As the healing system has a fourfold aspect of disease, cause of disease, and then the state of freedom from disease, and the methods of treatment. Similarly, this shastra, that is Yoga Shastra, is also chaturvyuha. Tadyatha, samsaraha, the worldly suffering, worldly way of life, and samsara hetuhu, cause of worldly life and its suffering, and then mokshaha, freedom from that, and mokshopayaha, what are the methods to attain that liberation. So this pattern we see is a very popular way of condensing or getting to the core, the Chaturvyuha. And one more point of view is now steering clear of all those chronology, all those things. When we look at the value of the Chaturvyuha itself, so whenever we are confronted with any problem, we worry too much about the problem. Rather than thinking of strategies to solve it, the problem seems to be of a meru akara. It is as if a huge mountain. We are unable to fathom the top or the tip or the bottom, the top or the bottom. So it is when we are confounded or faced with problems in our day-to-day life also, when we break down the problem into these four, then we see that, oh, only this much. So the problem has come. So that is Heyam, which has to be overcome. Heya Hetu, what is the cause of this problem? And then it is not that our entire life is going to get submerged by this problem. There is a state of freedom from this problem. Sometimes when we are confronting or facing a problem, we feel that our entire life is gone with it. No. When we adopt this Chaturvyuha system, then we see that no, there is life beyond this problem also. Whichever problem, in case of the interpersonal relationship, in the family, in the workplace, etc. So many, in various practical applications, situations, life situations, we can use this Chaturvyuha Vyavastha also. So there is an intrinsic value of this Chaturvyuha Vyavastha. So we see that to get to the core, we have to use this, or there is very much a lot of day-to-day applicability of this Chaturvyuha Vyavastha, which has been handed down to us, or which is there within the Yoga Shastra. But normally when people speak about Yoga Shastra, they speak about body, mind, the Ashtanga Yoga, Asana, Pranayama, etc. The entire discussion it seems as if it is dispersed everywhere. Whereas when we come to the Chaturvyuha, everything, see, it is not that yoga is not asana. It is not that yoga is not pranayama. It is not that yoga is not dhyana. But when we look into the framework of the Chaturvyuha, then nothing, it is in exclusion of nothing. Everything is included into this Chaturvyuha Vyavastha. Now, a brief introduction. I don't have much time to elaborate upon the entire details of Chaturvyuha, but I will show how the entire teachings of Yoga Sutra as such, all the 195 sutras are condensed into these 4 vyuhas or the Chaturvyuhas. Heyam, as every Heyam is Dukkham, the suffering which is yet to come. The first among the vyuhas is Heyam, and Yoga Shastra has identified that Heyam is suffering. Heyam is Dukkham. What is to be overcome? the suffering which is yet to come. Though the past suffering we have experienced and it is gone. The existing suffering, we have to live with it, we have to manage it somehow. And what can be avoided is the future suffering. So that is heyam. And what is that future suffering? The Yoga Sutra says everything. Heyam sarvam dukkham. Every life experience means that be cautious. Be cautious that every life experience has the seed of suffering within it. It's not a pessimistic way of approach to life. It is a cautious way, or rather a pragmatic way of approach of life, because with every life experience there is a seed of sorrow. Even in the happy experience there is a seed of sorrow. It is established by this sutra: parinama tapa samskara dukkhaihi gunavritti virodhacha dukkhameva sarvam vivekinaha. Means for the normal person, life seems to be altering between happiness and suffering, whereas a viveki sees that everything has a potential and possibility of being a suffering. So parinama dukkha, so there are various ways in which this is analyzed and experienced. There is in each and every experience there is possibility of parinama dukkha, tapa dukkha, samskara dukkha, and gunavritti virodha. For example, I am a diabetic. I have a diabetic problem, so I eat sweet. But the consequence, parinama, currently I may as if experience sukha of experiencing the sweet. By the parinama of it is dukkhanta only. And then tapa dukkha means, so this is about the future, parinama dukkha, from a present happiness which leads to a future suffering. And the present so-called happiness is also a suffering. How? I am a diabetic. Coming back to the same example, I am sitting in a feast where sweet is served everywhere. Sweet is served in my plate also. I can look at the sweet, but I cannot eat. I know. So this is, I am here. The object of enjoyment, so-called object of enjoyment, is also here, but I cannot use it. So this is tapa dukkha, unable to derive happiness because of our own limitations. So suffering due to consequence, suffering due to inability which is at present itself. And then samskara dukkha means I had tasted something beautiful, some beautiful delicacy somewhere, and then later when I try some other sweet somewhere, then I am reminded about that. No, nothing like that. So such a preparation, I can never taste it again in my life. So one beautiful experience, while it is being experienced, it gives happiness, but later the same experience puts us in a state of sorrow, where it reminds me constantly, no, that level of happiness. See, in childhood, life was so good. Now life is full of suffering. So a childhood happiness is a samskara of the childhood happiness is there. Now that happiness comes and it leads us, that nostalgia. People think about nostalgia. Nostalgia is samskara dukkha. We think of those glorious times and periods. Now we are unhappy because we are unable to go back to that state. So in this way, each and every experience has the seed of sorrow in it. So let us be pragmatic, let us be balanced, let us not be overjoyed nor be depressed. So that practical approach, so that is dukkham everywhere. So this dukkham has to be avoided, and that is heyam. And then what is the heya hetu? I'm just briefly presenting. We can discuss a lot about it, but I have to be brief. So heya hetu, what is heya hetu? What is the cause of this suffering? The Yoga Sutra says drashtra drishya sanyoga. So drashta and drishya. So there is consciousness, pure consciousness within us, and then there is a drishyam. There is matter, there is prakriti. So when the pure consciousness comes in contact or is in conjunction with the prakriti, so only then so that leads to all kinds of sufferings. So when the consciousness is established in its true nature, when it is not in conjunction, there is no problem at all. So it is when there is a drashtra drishya sanyoga, then all kinds of problems, all kinds of sufferings, they come about. So in that context, what is drashta, what is drishyam, all these are elaborated. So then we understand about the entire world and its constituents. So what is the subject, what is the object, what is the nature of consciousness, drishimatraha, pure consciousness, pratyayanupashyaha, shuddhaha, all those idea about the consciousness comes about under the drashta explanation. Drishyam, what is the other component, that is drishyam, which is matter, which is a prakasha kriya sthiti sheelam, which is of the nature of sattva, rajas and tamas, light, action and lack of motion, and then bhutendriyatmakam, which manifests in the form of elements and also the sense organs, and bhoga apavargartham, which leads to both enjoyment and also liberation. So this is drishyam. So drashta is the consciousness is presented, and drishyam is presented, and then the sanyoga. Sanyoga is swaswami shaktyo swarupopalabdhi hetu sanyoga. So understanding what is drashta, understanding what is drishyam, that is being connected with the drishyam and being immersed into the drishyam, immersed into the matter, that is bhoga. Though connected with the drishyam or the matter, when the mind is able to turn towards the consciousness, then that is slow movement towards apavarga. So all these concepts are covered under heya hetu. So heyam presents the ultimate, means the problem that we face, and then heya hetu at a very meta level, at a very deep level, identifies the core problem, or where it comes from, where the suffering comes from. Only when the matter and the consciousness are in conjunction, then all the, according to Yoga Shastra, Vedanta may have a different perspective, but according to Yoga Shastra, if I want to understand where the sufferings stem from, according to Patanjali Maharshi, this is where this is what we have to look into. So the drashtra drishya sanyoga is the cause of suffering, so that we see. And then then further avidya is also discussed, but due to lack of time, as I have, my purpose, limited purpose, is to introduce the framework of Chaturvyuha, not to go deeper into each of this. I'm skipping the discussion on avidya. Maybe we can discuss later. So the heyam is presented, the problem is discussed, and then the cause of the problem, drashtra drishya sanyoga, is presented, and then hanam, the state of freedom from heyam, the state of freedom from suffering. So that is presented as hanam, tadabhavat sanyoga bhavo hanam tadrishe eh kaivalyam. So sanyoga abhava, see, as long as the matter and the consciousness are in conjunction with each other, then there is every possibility of suffering. So when the sanyoga is not there, when there is no conjunction, it's as simple as that. As long as there is conjunction, there is suffering. When there is no conjunction, there is no suffering. And kaivalyam, the purusha is left alone, and he is in the state of, or that purusha, the pure consciousness in its true nature, it abides. So then that is kaivalyam, that is the state to be reached, to overcome all suffering. And that same kaivalyam is discussed as sattva purushayoho shuddhi samyam. So polishing the matter to such an extent that the pure conscious nature is reflected without any deflections or distortions. And finally the matter getting dissolved, purushartha shunyanam gunanam pratiprasavaha kaivalyam swarupa pratishtava chitishaktiriti. So the matter getting dissolved and allowing the purusha or the pure consciousness to remain, so where there is no conjunction with the prakriti, so that is the state to be reached. So such clarity we see. So from across the chapters, in second chapter, in third chapter, in fourth chapter, everywhere, whenever the concept of kaivalyam is spoken, everything falls into place. It is not that it is another kaivalyam, this is another kaivalyam. No, it is the same kaivalyam, it is the same hanam which has to be reached, which has been put variously. Means the seeming differences can also be resolved when we adopt this Chaturvyuha approach within the text itself. So it is also a textual methodology by which we can resolve and see a coherent flow of thought in the mind of Patanjali when we adopt the Chaturvyuha Vyavastha. And finally Hanopaya, this is a critical point here. So to reach that state of kaivalya, the upayas are to be, what are the methods, what are the ways in which we have to work to ensure that the sanyoga between the matter and the consciousness is severed, is overcome. So viveka khyati, aviplava viveka khyati hi hanopaya. So to attain that, to understand that, essentially in our normal perception, normal day-to-day transactions, all our transactions, all our speech, all our actions are there where the matter and the consciousness are mixed together. Whenever I say I am happy, I feel cold, I feel I feel hot, all these things, it is a mix of consciousness. And also, see, the heat is felt in the body, but I say I am feeling hot. So it is a mixture of and sorrow, happiness, all these are the qualities of the mind, we know. So but I say I am happy or I am suffering, so that I, which denotes the consciousness, is always mixed up with the matter. So that is the problem. So the answer is, the solution is viveka khyati. Khyati means clear knowledge of what? Viveka means Prakriti is different, Purusha is different, matter is different, I, the pure consciousness, is different. So that viveka khyati is the antidote, is the panacea which will help us reach the state of kaivalyam. And how should that viveka khyati be? Now when I speak, I also have viveka khyati. I know that Prakriti is different from Purusha, but my viveka khyati is viplava. It doesn't stand, it just floats away. Whereas the Shastra says aviplava, it should be very strong. Yeah, it should be unshakable. It does not float. It is very steady. So I am always established in this clarity of knowledge that Prakriti is different, Purusha is different. Only then we can move towards the Kaivalya. So that is the primary Hanopaya, or the methods of overcoming the suffering. Towards that, for a Samahita Chitta, for a Uttama Adhikari, Abhyasa and Vairagya lead to Viveka Khyati. For a Vyuthita Chitta, for an outward minded person, Kriya Yoga leads to Viveka Khyati. For a Bahu Vyuthita Chitta, extremely distracted mind, Ashtanga Yoga leads to Viveka Khyati. So normally when people discuss about Yoga Sutra, the basic discussions are only about Hanopaya, which is just the tip of the iceberg. So what is Heya, what is Heya Hetu, what is Hana, and in that context these Hanopayas come. So when we put all these together, we see the entire Yoga Sutra being covered in this context. Nothing is left out. All the states of samadhis come are the expressions of higher and higher levels of refinement of Viveka Khyati. That is explained. So the Samadhi Pada is explained. And Sadhana Pada is covered here. And then the Vibhuti Pada, which is full of siddhis, again it is explained through the Ashtanga Yoga itself, because Vibhuti Pada is all about Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi. Trayam ekatra sanyamaha tajjayat prajnalokaha tasya bhumishu viniyogaha. So when we do the viniyoga of Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi into various levels, then all the siddhis come about. So hence, with this Chaturvyuha, and Kaivalya Pada is finally the Hana, the previous state of Hana that we discussed, the state of Kaivalya. So that Kaivalya Pada is the content of the entire Kaivalya Pada comes under the explanation of Hana. So just in 4 steps, or if we are aware of Heya, Heya Hetu, Hana and Hanopaya, the entire Yoga Sutra, including the levels of discussions of Samadhi, including the Vibhutis, including the discussions on Kaivalya, everything is captured. So and all the fundamental details are covered. Nothing is missed out in this. And as I mentioned, it is not only, in the context of yoga, this is how the fourfold method works. And when we extract the methodology, we can apply it in any life situation, and the heart of any problem can be solved through this Chaturvyuha. And we can see that this has been used by so many disciplines like Ayurveda, even Bauddha Dharma has used this. And I even drafted a course material for a university on this heya heya hetu hana hanopaya, which succinctly conveys the essence of Yoga Sutra. And see, as I mentioned, in my introduction, it was said that I worked on the concept of Tantra Yukti. I am interested in textual methodology. So how a text goes about in presenting its idea. There was a methodology called as Tantra Yukti. So to me, this Heya Heya Hetu Hana Hanopaya, this Chaturvyuha, can be termed as another Tantra Yukti. How to decode the content of any Shastra. There is nothing to be bewildered about any Shastra, be it modern or the contemporary systems of knowledge or the ancient systems of knowledge. We can derive the essence of any Shastra by applying this Chaturvyuha. For example, let us take up the previous speaker, Anuradha Bhagini, spoke about the pronunciation, articulation. So, Shiksha Shastra. Let us speak about the Shiksha Shastra just as an example. So, there also, Heya Heya Hetu Hana Hanopaya, fourfold approach can be seen. There is suffering. Heya. What is suffering in Shiksha, from the Shiksha Shastra point of view? Incorrect pronunciation. So, that is Heya there. So what happens if there is incorrect pronunciation? In our Shastras, they say, Mantro hinaha swarato varnato va mithya prayukto natamarthamaha sa vagvajro yajamanam hinasti yathendra shatruhu swarato paradhat. If there is a flaw in swara, if there is flaw in the Alpa Prana, Mahaprana, if there is a flaw in articulation, the meaning becomes changed and there are negative consequences. Hence, dukkha. The wrong pronunciation is the heyam. Improper articulation, pronunciation is the heyam in Shiksha Shastra. And heya hetu, what is the heya hetu? What is the cause of this improper pronunciation? We do not know how to pronounce. We do not know what are the parts of articulation. We do not know how to use those various parts to articulate things properly. So that is heya hetu. Ignorance, avidya is the heya hetu. As in Yoga Shastra also, avidya is heya hetu. And then hana, what is hana? Perfect, flawless pronunciation. Madhuryam, akshara vyaktihi, padachedastu suswaraha, dhairyam, laya samarthancha, shadete pathaka gunaha. So these are the qualities. So this is the state to be reached in the level of pronunciation. This is hanam, hanopayaha. What is hanopayaha? So we know what are the aksharas, what is sthana, what is prayatna, what is abhyantara prayatna, what is bahya prayatna. All this is hanopaya. So if we know and also practice dirghakala nairantarya satkara, if we practice, then that is hanopaya. So any shastra, even to any contemporary science also, we can apply this fourfold methodology to derive the essence out of it, and nothing to be bewildered about any system of knowledge. Hence, this Chaturvyuha Vyavastha brings the crux out of any system of knowledge, and most importantly, this fourfold system is easy to remember. And when it is easy to remember, then it is easy to apply. We might have memorized all the means. We might have learned so many things under the Guru. We might have learned underwent Gurukula Vasa for 6 years, 10 years, whatever may be. If we don't have the essence of our teachings in our hand, then there is no use in having all the knowledge, received all the knowledge. So when we have it in the form of a formula, especially in the form of Chaturvyuha, it is easy to apply, because every practical Shastra, including yoga, reaches its purpose, serves its purpose only when it is applied. So for application, you need the right direction. And Chaturvyuha, the understanding of this Chaturvyuha gives you the right direction. I will conclude my presentation with a verse from Vyasa's commentary, where he says, Agamena, Anumanena, Dhyanabhyasa rasena cha tridha prakalpayan prajnam labhate yogam uttamam. This is one of my verses which are close to my heart, and I keep quoting in many of my presentations. So, Uttama yoga. What is the best yoga? How to reach the best yoga? By agama, authentic knowledge. And then anumana. So the knowledge that we receive, we subject it to inference, our own inferential processes. Yuktibhish chintanam, mananam, that is anuma. and then dhyanabhyasa rasena cha, and finding joy in applying the knowledge that I inferentially verified by my own training, by my own reflection processes. So, and enjoying that process, dhyana abhyasa rasa. So I receive authentic knowledge, subject it to my inferential processes under the able guidance of a guru, and then I into my life. So especially this is the from normal yoga to uttama yoga. So we have to apply these 3 steps, and the first stepping stone is agama, authentic knowledge, the right knowledge, and at the heart of the right knowledge lies chaturvyuha. So if we are aware of the chaturvyuha, then we are aware of the essence of agama, then naturally it flows into anumana, then it leads to abhyasa rasa and leads us to uttama yoga, and finally jivatma paramatma sanyoga also. So in that sense, it is very essential that as students, as teachers, as practitioners and professionals of yoga, there enough emphasis is laid on this chaturvyuha system, so that we stay with the core, we stay with the center, and move to the ultimate desired destination that is to be reached through yoga. So with these words, I thank the organizers for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mahadevan. And it's a wonderful lecture, like, because like it's very informative, and then like couple of thoughts or ideas you gave to our students, that is like yatsara bhutam tadupasitavyam. So the core is always important, and also like when it comes while explaining that heya hetu jnana hana and hanopaya. So how the concepts are changing into methods. So this is also one important thing that we came to know, and like the importance of commentaries is also highlighted, and it's a wonderful session, and we very much thankful for you. And I have one question that so it's basically that hanopaya, hana is basically the parityaga, right? The detachment, while simply explaining it. So, but like whereas in Vedanta, this the detachment is moksha, right? But still, after that, there is something called sukha. Some in some cases, the detachment itself sukha, but like in some cases, like after the detachment, some sukha is there. So, what about in yoga philosophy?
In yoga philosophy, when the purusha or the pure consciousness is in the state of kaivalya, that is the best state of sukha. Though the word sukha as such, we don't find it in connection with kaivalya in Yoga Sutra. Sukhanushayi ragaha, it is used in the context of kleshas, whereas when dukkha is overcome through all these, what remains? By parisheshya, sukha only. So hence, by implication, that state can be that the state itself is a state of sukha. So though directly the Yoga Sutra does not mention it as the state of sukha or ananda, if you overcome dukkha, what remains is the state of pure consciousness and sukha only.
Thank you so much. Anyone else to ask any questions to Jayraman Mahodaya? You may ask. Otherwise, we will move to the next session. Saroj Mahodaya, please.
I cannot hear. I think I cannot hear the question at all.
Sir, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We know that Sankhya accepted many Purusas. So when Kaivalya will happen, it will happen to one person, not another person. So in that state, that person will be individual person or will be universal.
In Yoga Sutra, the Purushas are many. Purusha Bahutvam. So that Purusha, the many Purushas, they attain moksha. So Bahupurushatvam is the philosophy of Yoga Sutra. Unlike Advaita, where in reality there is only one supreme all-pervasive consciousness, but it is because of the ignorance that the multiplicity etc. is felt. Here the Purusha Bahutvam is a reality, and in Kaivalya also the Purushas, they are established in their nature only.
So it will be individual Purusha.
Yes.
Universal Purusha.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Probably this is where the problem that Vedanta identified. Later Advaita improved this problem, worked upon this, maybe clarified this idea of the Sarvavyapi Purusha is there in the Purusha Sukta itself. So so that is clarified later by the Vedantic Acharyas.
I am thinking that we are. It is true that in texts they accepted many Purusas, but I am thinking we are not Purusas. We are Purusha Bhasas. We are the reflections of the consciousness in the Prakriti.
True, so sir. True. No. You are perfectly right. But each of the systems of philosophy, they confined their understanding to a particular notion. So Yoga Sutra confined their understanding to Purusha Bahutva, whereas that is clarified by Vedanta that no, there is one, especially Advaita Vedanta clarifies that the Purushas are, is as you said, Purusha Bhasas.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, another someone raised their hand.
Yeah, namaste.
Yeah.
It was very nice, Dr. Jayraman. I really very cherishing to the mind listening to you. I just have a small query. You said it's a mix of consciousness and matter is the reason for Heya-Hetu. Is Heya-Hetu. Well, now, for example, I'm listening to you. But if my consciousness and matter is not in commune, how will I carry this knowledge forward?
No, that is true, madam. So this worldly transactions that we do, of course it happens, it should happen only with a conjunction. A mere matter and mere consciousness will not lead to this worldly transaction. But this worldly transaction that we do, according to Yoga Shastra, will result in dukkha only. So this every worldly transaction where there is a mix of see this transaction of interacting with this wonderful audience. So this is a beautiful Sukhamaya experience. So when this ends, then it will end in suffering. So means I will remember, oh, this was a wonderful experience. So it is true that in our worldly existence, every transaction should happen with a mix of consciousness and matter. But the yogis, Sage Patanjali has identified that though apparently these lead to happiness, but ultimately there is a seed of sorrow in each of these transactions. So only when Purusha, the consciousness, is established in its true nature, there is no possibility of it contracting any virus of suffering.
Oh, you mean anticipate, always anticipate.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Srinivasa sir, Srini.
Thank you, sir, for wonderful lecture. It was really enlightening. If the moderator permits and if there is time, maybe you may answer my question. If not, you may also answer the question at the end after Dr. Kerr's lecture. I have a lot of questions, but what I would like to ask, I would like to choose my questions is one, yoga is considered as one of Vaidika darshanas. Now, this categorization of calling something as darshana, we have been conducting lecture series on other occasion also in this week. One of my colleagues had asked this question, which has been asked by many Samskritas. So the question is that Alankara Shastra is considered as a Shastra but not as a Darshana, is also basically because they don't have their own Pramana and Prameya categories. They don't have like Vedanta, like Nyaya, like Mimamsa, they don't have their own this thing. Whereas in case of yoga, it is considered as independent darshana. Do they also, any of these texts, do they also, you pointed out one of their metaphysical understanding as Purusha Bahutva. So they believe in pluralism. Similarly, do they have their own concept of what is Atma, what is Manas, how many tattvas are there? This kind of Prameya, Pramana, ontological and epistemological categorization, does it exist in Yoga Darshana? That was one question that I had. And another question that is based on this, it could be a consequential question to this, is that if that is the case, if they have, so if that is the case, then why do they are considered as a syncretic school of thought with Sankhya? However, like Vishishtadvaita, like Dvaita, Yoga and Sankhya, when it comes to epistemology, they believe in only three pramanas, as it is specifically mentioned in Yoga Sutra. So this kind of points are there, but still why they are considered as Nyaya and Vaisheshika, how Nyaya supports Vaisheshikas with the Pramana part, whereas Vaisheshika support Nyaya with the Prameya part. And in case of Mimamsa, how they support Vedanta with the Karma part, whereas the Vedanta supports Mimamsa with the Jnana part. In this case, how does Sankhya and Yoga, they are considered as syncretic schools of thought? Maybe your perspective as a traditional scholar would be a little different, because it's also a thought that modern Indian philosophers or contemporary Indian philosophers or Western Indian philosophers, they look at this idea of syncretic schools of thought. One more question that I have, maybe you may answer all these questions at the end. I'm really sorry for asking a lot of questions.
No problem. Very happy to take them.
One last is that yoga in Patanjali's text, I mean, I'm not a yoga person. I don't have any kind of knowledge about yoga philosophy as such. But yoga, as Patanjali himself is clearly mentioned, is kind of some kind of well-being. Okay, so it is almost similar to what. It's not exactly literally similar, but it's almost similar to what Krishna emphasizes in Bhagavad Gita and other parts of Bhagavata Purana and other Puranic discourses. Whereas today, as you also pointed out in your very early slides, the way yoga has been taken today also, it's referring to yogasanas, pranayamas and other practical, physical exercises and so on. That is also something that is to deal with personal well-being. But how come this whole asanas and others, this is asana is just one of the Ashtanga yoga. So how come the whole this world became popular in yoga, historically speaking? And particularly that in what sense Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga and all, they take refuge in Patanjali's yoga text. So is it that they also somewhere try to affiliate themselves, and also not just merely affiliate themselves, but also try to, like any other Indian darshanas, that they look at the foundational text and then they try to see that they branch out from the same tradition. So in this sense, how this popularity of some aspects of Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga that has taken, and one of the paths of Ashtanga Yoga has become a mainstream yoga, and the philosophical yoga, like philosophical Ayurveda, as you mentioned out about Tantra Yukti and so on. So how that this methodological, philosophical aspect of yoga is missed out, because we don't, I mean, there are a lot of commentaries, as you mentioned, about Bhoja Vritti and so on, there are a lot of commentaries on yoga text and all, but they, in my general knowledge, they are speaking about what yoga emphasizes, Patanjali emphasizes, but at the same time, that the way other darshanas work in terms of logic, in terms of ethics, in terms of epistemology, in terms of ontology, this amount of work seems to be less, because maybe it is because of my lesser knowledge, but I would like to know how would you like to what's your thoughts on these. So maybe if the moderator permits us to take your permits us to go on this discussion, it's fine. If not, these were my questions. Okay, thank you for the opportunity, and it was really a very enlightening lecture.
Thank you. So Gowthamji, should I answer right away?
Yes, like if it is like short, then we will complete it and then we'll go to the, because like I don't want to miss the sequence.
Yeah. So though the questions were elaborate, and I could grasp the crux of all the three questions. One is, and all these, the first two seem to be connected. The third one was an independent question. So does yoga has etymology, ontology, etc., etc.? Does it have its own system of organizing the world or understanding the world in various divisions? Yes, yoga does have, and as was mentioned by you, it follows the Sankhya ontology, that is the Chaturvimshati tattvas, that is Prakriter Mahan Tato Ahankaraha Tasmat Ganascha Shodashakaha Tasmat Shodashakat Panchabhya Panchabhutani. So this 24 tattvas is accepted in that is the Sankhyan. So yoga does have a division, but it is a division of the matter or the entire creation into the 24 plus 1 tattva. So number one, and which was brought about by the among the Chaturvyuhas, Heya Hetu. So drashtra drishayo sanyogo heya hetuhu. In that context, what is drashta, what is drishyam, prakasha kriya sthitishīlam bhutendriyatmakam bhogapavargartham drishyam. The next sutra presents all the 24 tattvas. Vishesha, avishesha, linga matra, alingani, guna parvani. So the various levels of manifestations of guna as vishesha, avishesha, linga matra, alinga. So these terminologies, these sutras, under the Heya Hetu explanation, you find this. And number two, yes, of course, yoga is inspired by Sankhya in adopting the methodology. As I said, it is inspired, but yoga adds its own Ishvara Tattva. Ishvara Tattva, as such, we don't see in Sankhya Karika. So in Sankhya Karika, we don't see the concept of Ishvara. So in the list of these Tattvas, we see the Ishvara being used. And then, as you said, for the Vaisheshika, the Nyaya provides the tools of logic. Similarly, for the Sankhya worldview of the organization of the world, there also yoga adds the Purusha Vishesha, that is Ishvara, and it also provides the methods of realizing the goal, that is through the Hanopaya, that is Ashtanga Yoga, Abhyasa Vairagya, and Kriya Yoga. Whereas in Vaisheshika, Nyaya provides the tools of argumentation, like Pramana Prameya Samshaya Prayojana Drishtanta Siddhanta Avayava Tarka, etc., which are argumentative or kind of cognitive related tools. These are practical tools that covers the body, mind, senses towards realizing the Prakriti Purusha Viveka and establishment into the Purusha. So I hope I have answered the first two questions. And then the third question is, while yoga is of a higher philosophical understanding, why are people attracted to the peripheral aspects of yoga? Of course, in Mimamsa they say phalavat sannidhau aphalam tadangam. So whatever is seen to yield tangible, perceptible, immediate result seems to be primary, and then the others are tagged along with that. So normally when people do asanas, they see some outcome, they see some relief, they see some relaxation, then they consider that as primary, and then the other as the secondary. But unfortunately, but when one analyzes deeper, so probably that is also not wrong in the sense, to some extent, to get into the yoga fold. Okay, come through asana, come through pranayama, but don't stop at the level of. So there is no problem in identifying yoga with asana and pranayama or dhyana, but one should not stop at the periphery. One should also go deeper. Only then these external tools or these other tools which attracted us initially can be used in the right sense. So to gravitate towards yoga, there is no problem in affiliating and connecting with the external tools. But once we are into it, let us not remain in the periphery. Let us go deeper. So that is the purpose. Hence, and also in loka, in the general world, drishta prayojana and adrishta prayojana. So for adrishta, to trust, to move towards the adrishta prayojana, not so easily perceptible, tangible proposition, we need deeper shraddha. But when there is a drishta prayojana, immediately cognizable, recognizable, realizable outcome, so those will be more attractive and will convince us more. So hence, in that sense, the peripheral aspects are more attractive. As I mentioned, from periphery, let's not stop at periphery. So the Shastra is there to lead us to the core. So Chaturvyuha Vyavastha is one such methodology, will lead us from the periphery to the core.
Thank you so much, Jayraman Mahodaya. And we will come with you with a lot more questions later. Now, I would like to welcome Dr. Saroj to speak to give his valedictory speech on Anavritti of Chitta as a method of meditation in yoga and Buddhism. Dr. Saroj is working as a program officer at Indian Council of Philosophical Research, New Delhi. Earlier, he worked as an assistant professor in philosophy at the School of Buddhist Studies, Philosophy and Comparative Religions, Nalanda University, Bihar. He completed his PhD in Nagarjuna's philosophy and postdoctoral research from the University of Hyderabad in 2006 and 2007. He worked in different notable positions in many institutions like Utkal University, Gowtham University, MS University of Baroda, and many more. He has served as a program officer at ICPR from 2011 to 2018. His area of specialization and interest includes Mahayana Buddhism and Vedanta, among others. He is engaged in critical, creative, and applied research in philosophy and allied areas of studies. He has outstanding publications, among which some of the recent papers are On the Theoretic to Applied Ethics, Revisiting Dharma in Mahabharata, Resolving Moral Dilemmas, Jaina Approach to Ahimsa, Ahimsa in Buddhism, and Ahimsa, Classical Indian Perspective Towards Future Philosophy, and many more. Thank you to have you here, sir, and we are like very much happy to listen from you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I am indebted to the organizing committee and to you especially. I am also thankful to the previous speakers, those who spoke in other days in this series, and also today. Since the matters of the discussion are similar, my presentation is similar to just Jayraman's presentation. So I want to take a different route to take a practical matter now. For that practical matter, I may request all our participants, if possible, they will follow me to make a little meditation. Often we study, we learn many things from tests, from listening, and for our considerations in the Vipassana. And now we will experience something I want to give you some, I want to extend some of my experiences to you. If you are ready to follow me for 10 or 15 minutes of practice of meditation. It will be a different test since for a long time we are listening. So it will have its own benefit for all of us. So should I go on?
Yes, sir, please.
So if we practice, I will stick to my time. Very less things are there because so many things are there. Jayaraman said that we essence we have to take, and we are focused now on something about the vritti. Vritti is the things that the mental things, the thoughts in, and the thoughts are appearing in our minds. And I want to give, I want to show you some method to experience that for some time we do not have any vritti. We do not have any mental modifications in our minds. So in that direction, I request all of you to be prepared for a little bit 15 minutes meditation. It will be guided meditation. I shall speak on, and you will follow up, and then you will experience something. So we are starting now. It is a type of Buddhist meditation, but this type of meditation is also found in the Saiva texts, because meditations are meditations, whether Buddhists practice them or whether other people are practicing as Jaina and other people are practicing them, it doesn't make any difference. So meditation makes some impact on our consciousness, on our thoughts, on our personality. So there is nothing Buddhist, Jaina or anything else. Only the thing that those people in their text, they elaborated it and they practiced it. That is why it is called Buddhist or Jaina. It is, the staff is given, the seal is given, the name is given. Otherwise, the things are for a human being only. So now let us start. So I request the participants who are desiring to go with me to sit comfortably on any bed or anywhere. Take a little bit of water if possible. Anybody is following me? I think 3 or 4 people who are in situation, good situation, they can make their video on. Can I request 5 or 6 people to make their video on? So that, thank you, Anuradha madam. I have taken one point from your talk and I incorporated that in my presentation. And I also asked you a question when you are going to another, when you are moving to another presentation. Yes, I am sitting now on a bed, okay, with the folded legs and practicing. So we may sit in the chair or anywhere, but we have to keep our spine erect for some time. If you are feeling thirsty, then take a little, sip some little water, a little bit of water. Let us keep our body comfortably, hands comfortably, everything comfortably, but spine will be erect. Let us close our eyes slowly. Close our eyes slowly. I have to blink in the meantime to see, otherwise I have to close. Let us look at our breath. We are breathing normally, slowly. Look at our breath. Inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling, breathing in, breathing out. Now slowly let us focus on our body. Slowly let us focus on our body. The whole body, the legs, knee, thighs, waist, belly, back, chest, shoulder, neck, face, back of head, above head. Be aware of our total body. Let us be aware of our total body. Then be aware of our personality. What we are. We are body, mind, and we have our learning. We have some positions, designations. We have some thoughts, future planning, hopes, dreams. We have some past also, good and bad. All these things we are keeping in us. We are identified by these. Whatever we accumulated, whatever we have taken, and we are keeping with us, and we are identifying ourselves with them, and thinking that we are so and so, we have such history, we have such designation, we have such achievements, failures. All these things we have. Let us now, whatever we have accumulated, we have to give it to the others. We have to abandon it, throw it away. So let us throw our designation, be detached from our designations, throw it away for some time. Let us throw away our achievements, throw away our failures, throw away our egos. Saroj, all things that make us cherish, or happy or unhappy, throw away all this. Now all your knowledge, let us throw away all our knowledge. Go back to the original as if we are a child. Nothing is written in our consciousness, nothing in our memory. Then slowly you see the body is there. The big body, because of the nourishment from the nature. So it is all from the water and food or earth. So return your body, the nourishment, to the nature. We return our nourishment, the flesh, blood, water, air, to the nature. Slowly become very tiny. The original stuff of our body came from our parents. So return our original stuff of our body, the chromosome, to our parents. Return all to our parents. Now we don't have anybody. We have nothing now. We are nothing now. Everything came from causes and conditions, went away. We have nothing. We are nothing now. Experience this nothingness, this shunyata, even it is nothing but still consciousness. Still consciousness. There is nothing but consciousness. Feel it, experience it. Now slowly take back whatever you returned. Take back from parents the original stuff of our personality, our body. Take back the nourishment from nature, air, water, all the muscles building nourishments, proteins, vitamins, minerals. Take back all the knowledge you have returned just now from the culture, teachers, parents, friends. Take all your knowledge, your designation. Take back all these ego, sorrow, hopes, dreams, everything as it was before. And experience now yourself. You are full of things. You are full of things. Baggage is full. Now, keep your both palms warm with each other. Both your palms make warm and keep it on your face. We shall come out. Keep it on your face, your palms. We shall come out. And now remove your palms. We are now normal as before 10 minutes. Now if you experience that for some moments we see that there is nothing with us but there is some experiencing subject, and then when so many things are there, then that subject is not experienced, things are experienced, and it happens that the stops are so many stops, so many hopes are, it is so much that even if you do not experience them also, we are not aware of anything else. Awareness also, we lost our awareness somewhere. We do something, we have something, we are running everything, but we are not aware of ourselves. So that Anuradha Madam started with self-consciousness, self-awareness, that we are losing. So yoga brings that you be self-aware, be aware of your awareness itself at the time when you are doing everything else. That Buddhism starts with this, that keeping the awareness, Chetana, be our every time with the present moment. Let me present the thing. And when we become aware of the present moment, screen. One minute I am presenting. Could you see the presentation, madam?
No, sir. Not yet. Not yet, sir.
No, sir.
So why it is not sharing?
Are you doing share screen, sir? Is it then have you chosen?
I am sharing. Multiple participants can see this thing. Okay.
No, but like I think like it's just click on that green icon.
Green icon, yes. Yeah, I click this.
And you can select just screen, and then at the right down corner you will have that share option, the written.
Yes, 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 yes.
You just click on that, sir.
I forgot that.
Okay.
Now it is okay.
Yeah, we can see your presentation.
Something is coming in between. So this, I think it will start from here. So Buddha says that this awareness, if we become awareness, if we keep awareness at every time, then we will get away from different vrittis. So many vrittis means there are the modifications of the mind, thoughts in mind, the original stuff of changing sequences. So mind has so many preoccupations, and it's inbuilt. So mind will make that inbuilt mechanism always. But Buddha says that if you keep awareness, if we try to be aware of our awareness, then slowly we can catch the vrittis. And if we can catch the vrittis, the modifications of mind, when the mental things are changing, then we can stop it. If we can stop it, then what will happen? Our vritti will be stopped. There will be no vritti for some time, and then it will lengthen. And then if vritti will stop, then what will happen? Consciousness will come up on our vritti. So there are two meanings of the vritti here. Vritti is the one modification of mind, and abvritti, there is another word, abvritti, means say something, suppose covering. Abvritti is covering. So vritti is a modification, and that modification covers the chitta, the consciousness. So consciousness, because it is a different kind of thing, like it is a water body. In the water body, see, ripples are there, waves are there. See, when waves are there, waves are coming out of the water because of the wind. Waves are coming out, waves are the water. But it is formed in such a way that the clean water, means this calm water, is not perceived, as if water is always in agitated state. Similarly, mind is cool, calm. But since because of the vrittis are there, the waves of thoughts are there, waves of thoughts, hopes, aspirations are there. So the coolness, the calmness of the mind, the consciousness is not understood. Since the calmness is not understood, not seen, we could not think of even to go to the deeper of the water. So that is why we could not get into the deeper level of the consciousness. So the thing is, our vrittis, means the waves of thoughts, should be set aside, should be cleaned, should be stopped by making our self-awareness, our awareness to our awareness. Only the people who are trained in this, they can do it. Otherwise, it is very difficult to do. That is why people who went to the monasteries, they are asked that you go, you do one thing. Whenever you are putting one step, you say, you keep your awareness that I am putting my one step. In the beginning, they have to utter, I am putting my one step, I am taking my right step and putting the right step, again taking the left leg and then taking the left step and taking the. So similarly, they have to speak. And after some time of speaking, the awareness will come. Mentally, they will be aware. And when the awareness will come, then the silly things are not required. Then they will be aware of their thinking itself. When somebody will be aware of thinking itself, then the self-consciousness will arise. So a little bit of training is required. So when this abrutti or this brutti, these modifications will stop, then the covering, these modifications makes covering of the consciousness, this covering will be removed. When covering will be removed, its calmness, original state will be covered and understood. This is the gist of the thing. Now, let us come to the thing. There are three words in our Vedic understanding. One is Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Everybody knows that Sat, Chit, Ananda, combining the words, is the nature, or it is the latter. It is the our supermost understanding of this reality, the universal reality. Since the universal reality is such the Ananda, so the universe is made up of the same reality. That is why in everything in the universe, there is the concept, there is the stuff of Sat, there is the stuff of Chit, and there is the stuff of Ananda everywhere. Even if there is something very bad, even poison, it has also some kind of Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Otherwise, it could not exist at all. It could not come up at all. Even the poison is poison for a normal person, but the poison is a medicine for a person who is suffering from some kind of a disease or some kind of other poison. So there is nothing fixed that it is something bad or something worse or something. All things are in conditional, and all things in situation, context are different. But the Sat, Chit, Ananda Swarupa is there everywhere. But the thing is, everywhere it is Khandita. Khandita means it is partial. It is very in a tiny way. We cannot experience it. Only the trained people can experience. We need a Purnananda. We need a Purna Chit, Sampurna Chit. We need a Sampurna Sat. So that is why our journey, everybody's journey is from the Khanda to the Purna, from the Apurna to the Purna. So that is the journey. In this journey, my concern here is to speak about the Chit itself only. Chitta or Chitta, and how the Chitta will be anabrutti. Anabrutti happen. Anabrutti happen means how the modifications of consciousness will stop and the consciousness, original nature will appear with us. That is the thing. Again, I am saying that how the modifications of the consciousness of the mind will stop and the original nature of the consciousness or mind will appear. That is the concern here. In Buddhism and also in all the philosophical and yogic texts, most of the yogic texts, it is said that there are four things. One is Chitta, another is Buddhi, another is Ahankara, and another is Manas. Since all people are from philosophy background, I know that they could understand these things. These four are called Antakarana. The thing is why I am telling this one point I have to here to say that since the Chit is the original stuff of the reality, from there this part comes the Chitta. When it becomes modified and distinguished, it will be distinguished not here, after some time. So first from the universal consciousness, universal Chit, so Chitta, a formation has been taken. It has no form at all, no limitations. But when it becomes Chitta, the limitation happens. And then when limitation happens, it is limitation, but it is universal still. So then Buddhi happens. Buddhi is another characteristics of these things. So Chitta is one characteristics, and Buddhi is another characteristics of the same stuff, same consciousness. And Ahankara, when Ahankara happens, it is a principle of individuation. So individual consciousness, individual Buddhi happens here. Before that, there is no individuality. So chitta and buddhi in that state, it is universal consciousness. It is not my buddhi, it is buddhi itself. It is not my chitta, it is chitta itself. But when ahankara comes, then it is my buddhi, my chitta, and like this comes. And after that it comes manas. So ahankara is the principle. When it comes, it arises from the universal, then everything becomes division comes and a distinction comes. Somebody was asking the question to Jayraman that whether Yoga Sutra has this kind of epistemic things. So Yoga Sutra has actually the vritti. Yoga Sutra defines this five vrittis. Five vrittis means modifications of mind, modifications of consciousness in human being. One is pramana. बंद किया साउंड हो रहा है अभी दिल लगा देना मैं कर दूंगा उसको खत्म करके हाँ उस साइड हाँ उसको नहीं मैं जानबूझकर बैठा हूँ इसलिए वो so one vritti is pramana or correct knowledge and another is viparjaya or misconception, another is vikalpa or conceptualization. ये दोनों को बंद कर another is nidra or sleep, another is smriti or memory. Actually, those vrittis, the modifications are exemplary. I think it is exemplary, not exhaustive or not something stipulated that nothing else cannot be spoken on the after this. These are exemplary in the sense that they are prominent. So nidra is prominent, and one we can divide it. Nidra is one, and jagrati is another. When nidra or sleep, then all these things will not happen. All these things, pramana, viparjaya, vikalpa will not happen. Smriti, of course, is there, and it comes in the swapna. So we can say that why swapna is not there? Swapna is part of the nidra and smriti. So one is a sleeping state, another is a jagrata or wake up state. So when we are awakened, so then pramana, viparjaya, vikalpa happens, and when it happens, then smriti is created. So then the vritti is made. So one thing is mind makes something, another is the mind has the nature of something. So nidra or sleep is a nature of mind. But in Yoga Sutra it is said in the third section that nidra, all these vrittis can be overcome. So one can overcome the sleep. Even Lakshmana and other people, they overcome, Arjuna also, Krishna, they overcame sleep. They did not sleep at all. They made some yoga for some time. I have seen some people, some yogis, they sleep for 1 hour sitting in the meditation. So these are the viparjayas, these are the vrittis, and all these vrittis can be overcome. When these vrittis are overcome, automatically that there is no vritti means mind will be calm and cool and in this original state, and we can experience the original state. We can experience, but we cannot speak. We cannot say anything else. But when at the time we want to describe it for others, then pramana will happen, viparjaya will happen, vikalpa will happen. What is this says? That we can experience the original state of consciousness, without vritti, without any modification. We can experience it, but we cannot differentiate, we cannot describe it in any way. At the moment we want to describe it, it becomes distorted. Because the description itself is a vritti. It's a pramana, viparjaya or vikalpa or anything else. So we have to overcome, we have to go above that. And when we are going above that, you may see in the third vikalpa. Vikalpa is the original things. Always mind will think of something. Vikalpa is translated as conceptualization. Vikalpa has another meaning is the alternatives. So mind has some its own mechanism. It will think of alternatives always, and it will think of conceptualization. Conceptualization, thinking something in a category. In another slide, I shall tell on these things. But we have to overcome the conceptualization. One may think that if there is no vritti, then we are just like pillows, beds, and stones. One may say that yes, we are like a stone because we have no vritti. There is nothing mental happen, so we will be like stones, we will like a bed, chairs, everything else, inanimate objects. No, this is not right. Because even if we do not have any vritti, but we still experience it. You may remember now, we are practicing this meditation, and at some point when we are having nothing, then we have some experiences. That experience remains for some seconds. It's true, but we can lengthen that. So after repeated practice, it can be lengthened. And when it lengthened more than one or 2 minutes, then the experience becomes experience at all. Experience which we can say that yes, we have experience. For 10 seconds, 15 seconds, we may not claim that it is an experience, because at the time we are going to experience it, it will vanish. And again it will come, and at the time we are going to experience it, it will go out. So there is a possibility that without all these things, modifications, mental modifications, we can have the mind, and that is the original state of mind. Yoga Sutra says the 5 places are there. One is avidya, or wrong or false knowledge, but actually it is not a wrong or false knowledge. Though it is many times translated like this. Avidya is a kind of thing which is a nature of prakriti. Avidya, in Vedanta, it is a projection, and it is a self-imposition, projection, and it is also concealment. So it is a power. This avidya is the fundamental avidya. It is the foundational avidya. It is not my avidya, your avidya, or somebody's avidya. And when somebody will overcome this avidya, then pure consciousness will happen. The vritti will go away. Anavritti. Mind will become anavritti. All bed city will go away from this bed, and the bed will be as it is. The mind will be as it is when all the vrittis, all the covering will go away. Another is asmita. Asmita is false notion of I consciousness. Who am I? Who we are? Our parents have made our body. They fed us from the nature, through the cultivation and other things. People fed us vegetables, others so many chickens and muttons, and then the body becomes bigger slowly. It is the force of nature. It makes digestion happens. We are not digesting anything else. Digestion happens automatically. So many autonomous nervous systems are there. There are 5 autonomous nervous systems are there. It automatically happens. Nourishment happens. The vitamins and the minerals, other things, body is consuming, and body becomes growing. Body is growing, and after some time, it will also the growth also will be diminished. So body is happening. What we are, if you say that we are so and so, what we are, our body is created by our parents and nourished by them, nourished by the nature. And the knowledge is created by our forefathers, and they have stored it, they have disseminated to us, and we are also collecting the knowledge, enhancing the same thing, and we have to disseminate. So knowledge is not ours, body is not ours. The designation, other things for which we are doing all these things, we are making the things. We are responsible for that. We are getting the certificates because we are responsible for getting the first class. So all these things our efforts. But suppose other people will not give anything else, should our effort will be possible? It will not be possible. Our effort is there, but it is conditional. Even if we keep effort, sometimes that is not there. So it is happening, all the causes and conditions, including our efforts, it is happening at the one time. As if one medicine happens, combining everything else with each other and keeping something more, one medicine we can create. Similarly, our first class or asmita is created like this. So trying to understand these things, asmita, we can overcome these things. So asmita is just a condition, just a created thing. Then raga, we have attachment. Yes, naturally we will have some attachment, but if you are aware of that, then we can be overcome it. There are some practices. It is called Arjuna Tapasya. Sri Ram Sharma Acharya of Yoga Shakti Gayatri has written one book on the yoga on Gayatri Mahavijnana, first part. On this, he said that there is Arjuna Tapasya. And there is some Trataka Tapasya also, Trataka practices. So whatever we have attached to now, similar things we can make, something detachment we can make. Our original raga is there. And dvesa, since we have asmita and raga, when asmita and raga will be hindered, then dvesa will happen. Aversion will come. Then we have avinivesa. Avinivesa, most of times are mistranslated. But avinivesa, since our Sanskrit scholars are here, we know that avi upasarga, ni upasarga, and vesa. Vyasa means some here, Vyasa also can be analyzed again. and Visheshanam, we are established somewhere. So our mind, our nature, or everything else habituated with something. So it is, you can say, the habit of mind, habit of body, habit of our personality. We are habit. When we do not have any mobile phone, we do not have anything else. Now we have mobile phone and we have some WhatsApp group, and we have always keeping looking at all these things, and other things are Facebook and other things. It has become our habit now. Maybe in a day, somebody is so habituated that if he does not see the mobile phone, he could not sleep, and he gone to madness. Why? Because he has so much Abhinivesa. Similarly, we have some Abhinivesa. We are teaching, learning. These are kind of some Abhinivesa. There are good Abhinivesa and bad Abhinivesa, habits, and we have to overcome those habits. Yoga says that Nidra is also Abhinivesa. It is a Vilasa. We can overcome that. Anyway, these are the things we have to overcome, and then when the 5 kleshas will be overcome, then we can get into the original state of consciousness. So first of this vrittis, 5 vrittis can be overcome, we can get into the original states. These are the things. And these emotional things, this avidya, asmita, raga, dvesa, avinivesa, all these things can be overcome by practices, and then we can get into the also pure consciousness. वृत्ति अनावरण कर सकते हैं. तो फिर 5 चित्त सब भूमि, 5 चित्त भूमि, these are called क्षिप्त, distracted, विक्षिप्त, occasionally distracted, and mudha or infatuated, and ekagra or one-pointed. And yoga says that all these chitta vrittis can be stopped. How it can be stopped? Just like you just now we have practiced something, and there are several practices. One will practice, and then all these things can be stopped. So I am not taking so much time on this thing because it is the evening and you have tired listening so many things now. Buddhist conception of chitta, Buddhist define chitta in several ways, and prominent ways is chetati iti chitta. So what makes you aware, that is the chitta. So and chetaitabhya, and that chitta, it is an original, and it should be. Chetaitabhya says that there is a conception that freedom, and we have freedom to do something else, and we are condemned to be free. In some other existentialist philosophy, we are condemned to be free. Even if such condemned to be free, we are confused what to do. We are so free, what to do? When people are going to college and there is a holiday, there is nothing to do, exam is over, then what to do? Let us what to do. They are so free. Chetaitabhya, it is a thinking. Consciousness has the power of thinking, and it should think also. There is nothing else. Even if it's self-awareness, we are thinking of our awareness. We are having no distraction. We are having one-pointedness, but even if there is nothing like that we are doing, but it is consciousness. It should think. But the thing is, we have to overcome the thinking, not to think at all. There is a very easy thing, very easy practice, that if we are working and everything else you are doing, means we are teachers and in offices we are doing, sometimes we have to do. Sometimes what we have to do, sometimes we can sit on our sofa or on our chair and doing nothing. For 5 minutes, let us do nothing, think nothing, just sleep or just sit like that, nothing to do. You will see that after 1 minute or half minute, something will come to your mind. Remove it. Do not allow. Not to allow anything else. Be passive. It will come into your mind. You don't work with it. So slowly things will come and go, and mind will be free from these things. So thinking, overcoming the thinking without working with the thought. So consciousness will happen. The 5 sense organs, we all know what are the 5 sense organs. I am not writing here. So 5 sense organs, people are in other systems, people are thinking that they are working with the chitta. The Nyaya philosophy says, Nyaya philosophy describes that how the sense organs are working. The Vaibhasikas and Sautantrikas in the Buddhists, they also say how people are thinking, how the 5 sense organs are working. in all their contention, they describe that 5 senses organs are working when mind is associated with them, and mind is associated when ichha or your desire is associated with that, and desire will be associated with that when your knowledge is there. So 5 sense organs works. There are so many 5 sense organs are the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg, the tip of the sea. There are many parts in the deep water. So 5 sense organs work when the mind is working with that, and mind is working when there is the desire is with that. Desire is working because knowledge is there. So many things are there. So what we can do? We will not entertain our 5 sense organs. We will stop our 5 sense organs. Suppose one will stop the 5 sense organs. It is very practical. You will not see, you will not listen, you will not speak. Just like the three monkeys of Mahatma Gandhi. So nothing we can do. Then you will see that mind will keep up something to do something. But if you do not entertain, it will stop after some time. So this is also one simple way. It will not take you to the final stage, but it will help. Sometimes we have to keep our 5 sense organs cool and calm, not to allow them to work anything else. The presentative minds are this Buddhist have two specific things for these practices to anabrutti of the mind. That presentative mind, be presentative mind with anapanasati. Anapanasati is just like looking at the breath. Looking at the breath, and looking at breath means breath is going, breath is coming, breath is going, breath is coming. That means your attention is there on the breath itself. There is nothing here. Yeah, and mind it will go on, because without breath we are breathing. Breathing is the natural thing. Without that we cannot live. But we cannot stop it also. So breathing will go on. If we will keep our mind focused on the breathing, then we will be presentative. We will be presentative at that moment. When presentative at that moment, many things, vrittis, that is going on in your mind will stop. That will not happen. I will in the next slide I will say that how it happens when we are not aware also. Our mind is creating so many things within us, even if we do not aware. There is another meditation. It is called Vipassana meditation. Everybody knows Vipassana. There are so many varieties of Vipassana nowadays. Vipassana is just Passana. Passana means dekhna or seeing, perceiving. It is not perceiving. It is not just keeping attention on this something. Something what? Something on your consciousness. What is happening in my consciousness? Self-reflection. It is what is happening in my mind. What is happening? Just to keep your mind, our attention passive and focused. What happened? Anything else? It will have so many great results if somebody will do. There are so many things. If I am requesting not to read it, you will be confused. Only the confused because I have no time to explain, and it is not time also to explain. So there is the green things, kamavatara chitta, rupa, green things, only the green things. Kamavatara chitta, rupavatara chittam, arupavatara chitta, lokuttara chitta. Chitta has different levels of entertainment. Kamavatara chitta means the mind when associated with different kind of desires, that is Kamavatara chittam. Rupavatara chittam, when there is rupa means some external things, sense experiential things. So mind is also many times. One thing is Kamavatara means mind desires. When things are not there, I will do something, thinking of something, desiring something. But Rupavasara is the present things, looking at the film, looking at the mobile phone, everything else, and being engaged in that. Some internal meaning of these things that I am not bringing that things. Arupavasara means be going beyond Rupa. Whatever is sense experience happening, we have to go beyond sense experiences. That is Arupavasara. And Lokuttara Chitta is this Loka. Loka means our some kind of realm, we can say. The different meanings of this Lokavasara. That the meaning of our am I audible? Anybody can respond, sir? Madam? Sir, madam?
Yes,
anybody
sir.
Can? Yes. I am going
sir,
to continue.
yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
And there are internal meanings of these things integrated. But the thing is, we have to overcome desire, we have to overcome our attachment to the world, and also overcome everything else, and that is the Lokuttara Chitta. Loka means a mandala, one sphere, a realm, and Uttara means beyond it, and Chitta can go beyond any loka. It means thinking, beyond the thinking. So it looks impossible and logically untenable, but it happens. Somebody will experience it. Logically, whatever untenable, whatever difficult it may look, contradiction it may look, but it happens. Logic has the world with the consciousness, with the conceptuality. Logic does not work with so many things which are experiential. Even love is a thing, logic does not work with it. So why with the meditation? One philosopher is Nagarjuna, and this slide I incorporated after listening madam in the first lecture, Anuradha madam. Language and conceptuality and structure of mind. Mind has some structure actually. Everybody knows that Immanuel Kant has said this categories of mind. Before that, Socrates also said categories of mind. So mind has some categories, some functionalities, something, and mind will create it. It is not a bad thing, it will create. And that creating is made with the language and conceptuality. When another madam was asking what is there in the animals language, and not in animals language but in human language. Human language has conceptuality. So language and conceptual, language is the outer part of whatever is audible, whatever is symbolically we are presenting. But conceptuality is there. It is an intricate thing like identity, differences, assimilation. So many mechanisms are there, and it is reflected in the language. Nagarjuna says that those languages and those conceptualities as our habits. Just like Patanjali in just above before some slides we are saying that some vrittis, pramana, viparjaya. So like the pramana, viparjaya, all these things are vrittis because of this conceptuality. It will happen if a child will grow, and when the child will grow, that the mind is first. It is so many philosophers, empiricists say that mind becomes blank when a child is born. But Indian philosophers, others say that no, mind does not become blank. Mind takes away something from past experiences. It is some past, some the past life, something they bring in their mind. But Western philosophers, that mind becomes blank. Some philosophers says. So Berkeley specifically said that mind becomes blank slate at the time of birth, and when he will work with others, and slowly some conceptuality, some structures will made up in the mind, and when it is made up, man becomes bound with this conceptuality. Actually, mind is not bound by this the family. Man or woman, a human being becomes bound. Bondage becomes because of the conceptuality. Somebody will clear the conceptuality, understand it, and try to get away from this conceptuality. For some time, he will be free. There are so many conceptual things in our mind. So he said that whatever we are experiencing, that sunyata. One way of overcoming this conceptuality is sunyata. You just remove everything else, becomes blank of everything else, becomes empty of everything else. Sunyata is translated many times as emptiness. Keep yourself empty. Whatever you are bringing yourself and whatever is assimilated, and you are symbolizing that you are you, and you have something ego and everything else. Just to make it away from you. You will feel sunyata. You will feel go above the conceptuality. Yes, it may remain for some time, but if you practice more again and again, it will remain. It will be materialized in your swabhava also. Then there are two types of sunyata, he says. There are prapancha sunyata and swabhava sunyata. This reality is prapancha sunya. Prapancha means conceptuality. Prakushtena means conceptuality is called prapancha. I do not have sufficient time for Sanskrit analysis. The prapancha is conceptuality actually, and prapancha another meaning is the whole world, because the panchabhuta, the five great elements creating this whole world, whole universe. So that is also called prapancha, and this prapancha is also conceptuality. So we have to clear away from our conceptuality for some time. And Swabhava Sunya, we have to think that we do not have any immutable, unchanging Swabhava within us. If you think, then we are in the conceptuality. If he thinks for some time, there is no conceptuality, then there is no concept we have to keep in our mind, and we have to not to keep also ego within us. That we have no ego also. We are total empty. Then we can overcome the vritti. Ashwaghosa is another philosopher of the 1st century, just before Nagarjuna. All the Sanskrit scholars here know Ashwaghosa. He has given one philosophy, that tathata. Tathata philosophy means thatness. So whatever is there, you just see and see that it is created and there, and it is just remain that. Do not think of anything else after and overcome that. It is like that, finish. So thatness is there. But thatness, I'm sorry, there is a spelling mistake in thatness. It should be THA. I wrote it tathata, okay. So the tathata means, so when somewhere we are thinking that things are as it is appearing, as it is experiencing, and we should not think of anything else. That tathata, when we apply it to our consciousness, the consciousness is appearing, yes, as it is. And then consciousness is pure as it is. Just thinking of and contemplating on that, mind becomes clear and pure. It has so many other meanings I am not bringing. So then there is a Vijnanavada, the Vijnanavada development in towards the 4th century by Vasubandhu and Asanga. Asanga and Vasubandhu developed the another Mahajana Buddhism, which is called Vijnanavada. They conceived one kind of concept called Alaya Vijnana. The Alaya Vijnana means whatever we are doing, bringing all the things, the 5 sense organs, and then mano, mind, and then the ahankara or the klishta mano vijnana. The klishta mano vijnana is the ahankara. So with the 3 things, with the 5 sense organs and mano vijnana 6 and klishta mano vijnana 7, with all these 7, whatever we are doing, it is writing something in the computer, in our mind, in our consciousness, in our mind, in our personality. Whatever you say, there something is written, something is getting grasped, something is getting sealed, stamping there, and that is called Alaya Vijnana. And that whatever is there in us, and that will make some changes in our consciousness. So everything, whenever we are doing something, thinking, speaking, every behavior, it has some impact, some impressions in us, and that impression is getting modified, getting sometimes weak, sometimes stronger, sometimes mixed up with other things. So these are making a continuation of our personality. And Vijnanavada points out that Vijnanavada has also another name, it's called Yogacara. In its Yogacara faction, they point out that we have to clean all these things written in us. Whatever is, suppose our personality is in a blackboard, and in the blackboard so many things are there, we have to wipe out everything else. The blackboard should be clean. There should not be anything else. How to do these things? Just to conceive that all these are the creations of the consciousness. Thinking only that all these are creation of consciousness, then we do not have any attachment, and then we can overcome that. So when things are coming from Alaya, suppose in our past life or now last year we have done something, then from there it will come to our mind, means our personality, our ego, and from ego it comes again towards the mind, and from mind we are then working. Suppose last year I have taken some rasgulla somewhere, some sweets somewhere, and if this time I am going to that direction, to that city or to that road, then I am thinking of, oh, that rasgulla, that sweet is there, I ate last year. That comes to our ego, and then it comes to mind, let me try again, and then the 5 sense organs will, after what will happen after that. Then we are going to that hotel, and then we are taking these things. This is a simple and a childish example. It is not exact example, but the same way things are happening in our mind. The last life I have some love towards some girl, or a girl has some love towards some boy, and it could not be materialized, or materialized in very wrong way. Then it is there in that, and in this life they will be attracted with each other. They will happen with each other, they will be attracted with each other, and then they may marry also, because that unfulfilled things may not happen. Our conception of ghosts, atripta atma, are also similar kind of things. But we have to stop our five sense organs, stop our minds, stop our ego, then we can go to stop there will be nothing in the alaya vijnana. Slowly the alaya means actually the home or a house or anything, a kind of pot. That pot will be empty of everything else, every previous thing, previous vasana, previous impression, or whatever you say. Then we will have the pure consciousness. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for the wonderful session. Like, it's a lot of informations put together. Within that, you have also connected with the previous lectures. That's really great. And also, like, it's very much helpful for the audience as well. So because it's too late, so is it fine to collect the questions from the participants later, and then we will come to you through email or something?
Yes, anything else? Anything else?
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Now,
I request one thing, that whatever the meditation we have done, anybody will apply it in life, it will be better.
Yeah, of course, exactly, sir. Like what we have discussed as much, like it's a kind of like practical experience we got within with that. Yeah, that's great. And
Okay.
now, and also, like, we know like how you work, because like even at 11, 12 and all, like you reply to the mails and all, like it's great. Now I would request Dr. Ananda Teertha, Senior Research Associate in Department of Philosophy, to tell the vote of thanks to the gathering.
I have one question to Anuradha madam when she was speaking.
Yeah.
If
Anuradha Bhagini?
she can answer. I sent the question
Sorry, sir, I was getting ready to go outside. Please tell me, sir. Sir, please tell me, sir.
How language whether language has any impact on the mind, our thinking.
Very much, sir. According to the research of Dr. Lera Boroditsky, psycholinguistic, and she's shown that if you make people think on the patterns of different language, not think, if you make them use language on other language patterns, then the thinking is affected.
Okay.
There is no doubt that the thinking. So, but first and foremost, thank you very much for your very elaborate presentation. I think there's a lot to unpack from there. More importantly, your meditation also I thought was very valuable. Just personally, I thought it was very great.
Thank you.
Yes. So I think yes, there's no doubt, and also I think very simply, like for example, if we only speak English, we have a certain place of touch. We don't touch between the palate and the upper dentals. And you have French that only touches the dental. So the fact of not stimulating those parts of the vocal system also has an impact on the kind of energy channelization that happens, the breath. It's very interesting how one can make out people's personalities also.
Okay.
If you only speak with your mouth closed like that, you will have a certain personality. Like French, very, like ooh, like that. So it creates a certain personality. It's quite interesting. Italians, they have you talk like that, and suddenly your whole body will move to that language. It's much more outgoing. It's much more expressive. So
there is a book coming up, Magic of Words. A book on magic of words. We'll contact you for writing one chapter on this.
I'd love to try and do something there. So thank you very much for thinking of me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank
you. My pranams. Thank you very much.
Okay, Gowtham ji.
The organizers and the participants also. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, madam.
Thank you all. Namamsi Sarvebhyaha. Now we will conclude the International Seminar Series on Yoga in celebration of the International Day of Yoga. After these long, fruitful sessions, I won't take much time, but it is our duty to express our gratitude to the speakers of these thoughtful sessions. तत्र प्रथमतया अत्र सांख्ययोग इति विषये उपन्यास्थत् डॉक्टर अनुराधा चौधरी महाभागा तस्यै कृतज्ञतापूर्वं हार्दं वन्दनं समर्पयामि। एवमेव चतुर्व्यूह इति विषये बहु विद्वत्पूर्णम् उपन्यास्थत् डॉक्टर जयरामन महादेवन महाभागः तस्मै अपि कार्तज्ञ कुसुमानि समर्प्यन्ते। अन्ते च अस्याः अन्ताराष्ट्रीय संगोष्ठ्याः समारोपण अंगतया वैलिडेक्टरी स्पीच रूपेण उपन्यास्थत् डॉक्टर सरोज कांताकर महाभागः तस्मै कृतज्ञतापूर्वं वन्दनानि समर्प्यन्ते। And we'd like to express our gratitude to Dr. Saroj Kantakar, especially because the International Seminar Series on Yoga was held in collaboration with the Indian Council of Philosophical Research, ICPR. So we would like to express our gratitude for their constant support. Such seminars where private universities collaborates with the national government institutes is very rare. But as a result of this partnership, as we have seen, has been extremely fruitful. And also, MAHE's partnership with the ICPR has been a long-standing one. And I'd like to thank Chairman of ICPR, Professor C.R. Sinha, and Member Secretary of ICPR, Professor Sachidananda Mishra, and special thanks to Dr. Saroj Kantakar for extending continuous support in this journey. We hope to continue this partnership and explore other arenas. And lastly, I'd like to thank all our participants for attending these sessions. I'm extremely grateful to our team, especially at the Department of Philosophy, MAHE, without whose help this event would not have run as smoothly. So, sarvebhyah vandanani. Thank you all. Shubham bhuyat.